Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for here. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. We might. I think we did it, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on the I'm No Joe channel. Thank you for tuning in. I know it has been a minute since we have seen you fine folks last. Before we get any further into this, I just want to take a moment and have a quick moment of silence for one of the biggest supporters of this channel. One of the main reasons that I do the things that I do here. The creator of TMI, one of the best human beings I ever had the pleasure of knowing. Mr. Ryan Massa was taken from us a week before last. That was part of the reason we did not have a show last week. So I just want to have a quick moment of silence for him. Hashtag be like Rye. There's a link down in the description for any Vape Rye memorial gear you would like to pick up. All proceeds are going to the GoFundMe to help raise money for his family in their time of need. That being said, let's move into a little bit more uplifting, a little bit lighter spirited things here. We are back from a couple week hiatus here. There has been a whole lot going on in the MMA world since we last saw you fine folks. So before we get too deep into it, let's take a moment here. We have got a couple of folks with me this evening to break this down, to talk some shit, to run through the rigmarole. We're going to start it real quick. The Phantom of Fishtown, the one and only, the ghost himself, Nick Devine, is actually fucking here. How you doing, brother?
What's up? Yeah, glad to be here. Let's get it started. What's up, chat? Anyway,
Glad to have you back, brother. And then across the octagon, as it were, from he and I, the Green Bay Brawler, the man himself, my Wednesday night homeboy, Mr. Golf T Vapes. TJ, how the fuck are you, brother?
Fucking fantastic. Ready to be back on the air again. Last week there was so much goddamn fluff, but it was befitting of not having a show.
Yeah. We'll get into that again here in just a minute. So as we tend to do here, we're going to start it off right at the tippy top with the news and recent events. All of the happenings and goings on and fight announcements that have happened since the last time we brought you fine folks a full and legitimate episode here. Like TJ was saying, there was so much fluff last weekend, both in the UFC card and in both of the, that's right, not one, but two Bellator cards that were put on last weekend. Between the entire lot of them, I think there was only 5 total ranked fights between 3 full cards, prelims and mains on all of them. It was a weekend full of bullshit, mean nothing fights. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of them here in a minute. Let's start right off at the top here. One of the first fight announcements that just came out a couple days ago here, and I was legitimately surprised because I honestly thought he was fucking retired, but it turns out, no, not the case. Mauricio Shogun Hua is stepping back into the octagon in a little over a year and a half's time absence to fight Smilin' Sam Alvey on November 16th down in Sao Paulo. So, I mean, this is not necessarily a fight that I'm excited about, aside from the fact that I have a slim little grain of hope in the back of my mind that this is one of those, for lack of a better term, loser retires matches, because Smilin' Sam hasn't really been shit to talk about in a hot minute now. And like I said, I honestly thought that Shogun was retired. He really hasn't been the Shogun that he used to be in a long time now. And I feel like this matchup, yeah, like the music describes it best. Like, that's exactly how I feel about this matchup. Do. Like, I mean, I get that they need more fights on the Sao Paulo card, and, you know, you got Shogun who can represent, but come on, guys. Now, next thing I want to mention real quick. I might be a little fuzzy on this, but I could have sworn that part of the reason that Henry is not defending the 125 belt against Benavidez was because he was supposed to be having surgery because he's injured and he couldn't train and he couldn't put a fight on. But the last 4 fights in a row for the UFC, Henry has been there. No cast, no sling, no crutches, no bandages, bouncing around, dancing, and sure the fuck enough, they're showing the open workouts today down in Australia, and guess who the fuck is down there and bouncing around and joking and sure doesn't seem very fucking injured enough to warrant not defending one of the 2 belts he's currently log jamming. But, you know, it's a bad move to hold up 2 divisions when you won't defend either belt, he says, and then does. Cringe Hudo.
He must have sprained one of them arms changing diapers.
I'm telling you, must have lifting that gold medal off his neck.
Yeah.
Must have like torn a rotator cuff or something. Like,
yeah.
Oh, that in that giant fucking head.
I find that quite ironic that he's holding both of those divisions up currently.
After he talked shit about Conor doing it?
I was going to say, going straight into that.
Yeah.
Conor had 2 belts. They immediately stripped him of one once he got the second one. So I'm just saying, I'm smelling some bullshit here. Daddy Dana, stop taking the gold medal and they asked for him. And drive along, strip that motherfucker of one of them because he's obviously not doing shit.
I agree. And to think that he, even for a fucking second, could hold a candle to the talent and charisma that Mighty Mouse had when he was the legitimate person in that division, or could have been both of those divisions, that would have been able to entertain and still defend both. And then Cejudo is trying to say that he's better than that. I mean, I think Dana's got a little triple C right here.
For those of you who don't know what this is the bullshit flag, and I'm waving it.
Absolutely. So next thing I want to mention real quick, this actually just came about night before last. I was just reading all the details on it last night. It has officially been announced, but very, very quietly and kind of swept aside as quick as it was announced. Showtime Pettis' younger brother, Sergio Pettis, who arguably I would say is the more talented of the 2 Pettis brothers, is officially a free agent right now. His last fight was the last fight on his UFC contract. Now, apparently, they have told him that they would be open to having him come back and would gladly give him another contract. He has said that he's not opposed to going back to the UFC, but he wants to see what other offers are out there because he's a free agent right now, and that's absolutely the right move to make, especially, in my opinion, when the UFC hasn't really been promoting him that much. And despite having a couple of initial setbacks, he's still young into his MMA career with incredible potential and amazing skill sets for a guy, you know, as green as he is into this world. I really think, honestly, that he is the more talented of the 2 Pettis brothers. And if I had to pick one of the 2, I would absolutely put my money on Sergio versus Anthony. But it seems like the UFC is kind of going the other way with that. They're really pushing Showtime more now than ever, I feel, and it almost seems like they're going to just let Sergio slip away because if they're not careful, One or Bellator will throw him a humongous fucking check because he's a pretty decent name, even as young into his career as he is. That Pettis family name and some of the highlight reels that he's already got will warrant a decent fucking check from any of the other opposing organizations. And I don't want to see Sergio have to fucking go. But at the same time, if UFC isn't willing to play ball, son, get the fuck out of Dodge. Like, get that money, do your thing, and win some damn fights. Like, he's a talented fighter, legitimately. It kind of sucks that the UFC is going to let him go, but it feels like they're almost inviting him to walk.
That's exactly what guys need to do to get more money. Unfortunately, some good guys have to go to other places, but that's what it's going to take in order for these other guys to make more money at the UFC, is to show that you have leverage. If you have no leverage, then
they got you over a barrel. You got to do what they say. But now, especially with One being as big as it is, with all the fucking money that's flowing over there, like, they gave Eddie a fucking 7-figure contract, and Eddie was middle of the pack at best in the UFC. They gave him a 7-figure contract. Dudes want to make some money and get legitimate competition. ONE FC is starting to realistically look like the real front runner in this world. So the UFC is going to have to start getting their shit together.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time they finally cut that fucking Reebok contract,
Right?
and let their fighters start getting paid again.
Yeah,
because you know what?
Doubt.
Look, those guys legitimately want to fight in the UFC because they know that's where the best fighters are. Look, I have a lot of respect for ONE FC, Bellator. They have some really good fighters. Most of the best are usually in the UFC. And I say usually because don't get me wrong, there are some soup cans over here, and that's partially Daddy Dana's fault for his Contender Series bullshit and some other unmentionable names that have hype trains for no fucking reason. But for the most part, most of your best fighters, pound for pound, come out of the UFC. But when they're not getting paid what they're worth, fuck yeah. I applaud them for leaving. Bend the UFC over a barrel. Make them take it. Because you know what? They're going to try that next man up mentality that does not work when you're pulling guys off of the Contender Series and thinking they're the next big fucking thing. The only people who are legitimately getting paid right now in the UFC are those that are right in title contention, those that have the belts, or those that have been around long enough and have had a fantastic fucking resume. Seat movers. I mean, that's the thing. Cowboy Diaz is finally where he fucking belongs, and they're finally paying him. Masvidal, another one. Yeah, there's legitimate folks there that are people movers that are fantastic fighters, but a lot of them that are fantastic fighters may not be the people movers currently, and because in my opinion, they're getting the wrong kind of press from the UFC and not enough of it. So yeah, go to another fucking place where you can get Condom Depot on your ass and make an extra $100,000 to fight.
Hell yeah.
Do shit like that. Fucking right. Yes, please. And not to mention, it beefs up the stock in those other like Bellator and ONE FC, which makes them gain more popularity as well. Because a lot of people, they follow individual fighters, myself included. I go and I'll watch certain fighters on other cards, even if I don't care for what else is on the card. I'll watch the card anyways, just so I can see that one fighter. So,
yeah. If they all paid the same, if UFC paid the same as ONE FC, UFC paid the same as Bellator, they would really get all the best fighters because everybody would want to go fight for UFC. So even from top to bottom, they would get all the best fighters. And then you would have the second best would either be at ONE FC or Bellator. But if you really want to get the best fighters, if you pay the same exact as all these other guys are paying or around the same, you're going to get that. Right now, it's kind of like, the smaller guys are going to go over there, and those are the guys that are coming up.
And don't get me wrong, the UFC has a great business model for the UFC.
Exactly.
They don't have a great business model for the fighters, though.
For the fighters.
For the actual money makers. Look, Dana's been the head of the UFC, or the face of the UFC, for so goddamn long, and is unwilling to budge on shit. It's really starting to fuck them when it comes to keeping really good fighters, because now we're seeing, I'm a free agent. I'm going to go somewhere else because I know I'm going to get paid. Can you blame them? Fuck no. Even if you're a middle-of-the-road fighter and you're still a seat mover, guess what? It makes sense to go to Bellator. And to be honest, I really hope, not that I wouldn't like to see Sergio stay in the UFC, because he belongs there. Absolutely. But I really hope he leaves for his own sake. Line your fucking pockets while you're whipping people's asses.
Yeah, in your prime. Yeah, make some fucking money.
Yeah, show them what they're missing and show these other fighters that are right now yes men, is what I'm going to call them.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Fucking that it's okay to leave. You're going to do just fine. You're going to get paid. Make sure you have your ducks in a row before you go. Make sure your agent or whoever else is there. Was it a couple weeks ago? There was what's his name got fucked out of a paycheck because he went to some fucking third cut rate fucking thing where he's supposed to make X amount of dollars.
Yeah. Combat America. It was the Combat America card where fucking what's his name? Tito was fighting Del Rey.
Yeah, and they fucking literally did not pay the fighter that fought, which was bullshit. But he fucked himself because he didn't have his ducks in a row. Yep. So all I can say is that one's on the fighter.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, that's something. That's why I say have your ducks in a row before you go, and go to a legitimate fucking business. Don't go to Combat America.
Right, a place that has a record of holding 6 to 7 months before they get a fucking check to a fighter.
Yep. So that's what I'm saying. But yeah, no, Sergio, please leave. Not because I don't want you in the UFC, because I want to see you get paid for what you're doing. You're a fantastic fighter, and you deserve to be paid like one. Not like a third cut rate fucking second cousin kissing their aunt. You're getting fucked, and not the way you want. Right. Time to do some fucking of your own.
I agree. So moving on from that slightly sad news to similarly slightly sad news, it was officially confirmed this week that the headline for the UFC 245 card, December 14th, will be Max Blessed Holloway versus Alex Volkanovski. I mean, I understand that they want Max to get back in there after the loss to Dustin at 155. He needs something that can, reestablish his brand and resecure his status as the best 145er ever, which is hard to deny at this point. But it almost feels like they're just doing the same thing they did to John when he got the fucking belt at 205. They're just throwing everyone who's even remotely close to a contender in a row as quick as they can to try and get more fights. And then, we're coming right off this the Dustin fight where he legitimately got banged the fuck up. He got hurt, should have some time to recoup. And here we go in December. He's going to be fighting Alex, who, to his credit, is not a bad fighter. I'm not saying that at all. What I am going to say is that he is not anywhere fucking close to title contention worthy of a good fighter yet, let alone ready to challenge somebody like Max. Get yourself established as the number one contender. Beat the best guy coming up. Prove you're the top of the fucking stack. Then get your title shot. So that way there's no contention or no confusion when a belt gets won. That's not what I feel is happening here. It feels like they're just pushing Alex because he's the next potential big face, as well as they're announcing it while they're in Australia. He's an Aussie guy. So it's like, this is absolutely, to me, more about publicity than it is just being the right fight to make. And that's never a good thing when you're talking about a fucking title. It feels like they are rushing a title shot, almost like they're willing to see if Max has lost a step from that 155-pound bout that he was just in, and they're willing to use his 145 belt as, collateral almost. I don't agree with it.
He did fight Frank Yeager, though.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. Which,
so, I mean, well, I think these guys deserve a chance. I think they deserve a chance. I think Volkanovski deserves a chance. I think there's a couple other guys I can't think of off the top of my head. Oh, nah, the other guy doesn't deserve a chance. The Russian guy, not yet, but yeah. I think that's a tough fight. I don't know. I love Max, and I think he's fucking. But I guess we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. No, that one's definitely gonna take some talking once we get a little closer to that. Now I want to take just a little bit to talk about a couple of the things from the UFC card last weekend. Alexa Grasso is so fucking unjustifiably overhyped. At the same time, Carla Esparza is a tough girl. God, she's fucking bad. She can take a shot, but it's just like, it feels like Carla really hasn't improved at all in her entire time in the UFC. And it feels, again, like they are rushing Grasso to try and get her up the fucking ladder so quick. And it doesn't feel deserved. Her style isn't there. She's not that fluid. She's not that good of a fighter overall. And it's not that she's just going up against the best, because Carla is arguably the biggest name, the toughest challenge she's had to date. And Carla's not that big of a challenge. She's not really that tough of a fight for most of the girls in that division anymore. So I don't like, that was one of the highlight fights of last weekend's UFC card, and it just didn't really fucking live up to it to me. But it did lead me to ask an interesting question, and I haven't gotten an answer for it yet, but I'm wondering if maybe you guys have any insight into this as well. I know that you both have significant others in your lives or have had them at one point in time, so you should have at least a little bit of insight, I would think, here. Maybe it can help me figure it out. Why, when these girls are going into fights like these, do they braid ribbons into their fucking hair? Like, I understand braiding your hair because if you've got long hair and you've ever done any type of grappling or fighting, it's easier to put that shit up sometimes, especially for a fight where you're going to bounce around a lot. I can understand the braids. But with braiding the ribbon into your hair, it almost makes it easier to spot head movement to me. And I don't understand how that plays into the fight world on the ladies' side of it.
Because that shit looks dope, dog.
Until you get popped in the mouth with a left jab because they can see you juking.
But you look good doing it.
I mean, there's absolutely that, I suppose.
This is my own personal opinion on this, and I have kind of a two-sided opinion. One of this, they're girls. They're trying to, as much as they're going in there to beat somebody's ass, they want to have a little feminism to themselves. Perfectly understandable. This is one guess. I very well could be wrong on this. Now, the other side of that I look at it from this aspect, kind of on the other side of like Thai kickboxing, like traditional Thai kickboxing, where they're coming in with the bands around their arms,
right? Yeah,
the head wrap and all of that.
As much as combat.
The decoration as much as combat aspect of it. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with it as well. I don't know that either one of those answers are correct. The only ones that are really going to know the answer as to why they fucking do it are the women who are putting the shit in their fucking hair. But those would venture to be my two guesses, because you know what? I'm a girl. I'm going to put some pink ribbon braids in there. Okay, do your thing. Get on with your bad self. But, you know, I guess it could go a couple of other ways too, but I can definitely see where you're coming from on being able to see the head movement a little bit better. But
yeah,
I mean,
you're essentially putting checker patterns in your hair in a world where you're trying to be elusive and stealthy.
Well, all right, that brings me into this portion of it. Digital camo, former military. They did use digital camo in urban settings. Why? Because it breaks up your pattern in an urban setting. Technically, you have a chain link that's kind of almost a square-ish pattern. So I guess it could work in both ways, but at the same time, and that's just to play devil's advocate on that idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I honestly don't have the fucking answer to it. I'm basically shooting from the hip and blowing a load where it doesn't belong.
If only we had a female that we could ask for perspective about this.
If only.
Sure, why not? Otherwise, it might be weird, because I'll just put up a sock puppet and you can talk.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, so to be a little bit more realistic, things that you can do with your hair if you are a female, and I don't know how long of the hair you're speaking here, but you can line them with hairspray to get a nicer hold on the braids. So it could be something where it's just to help them keep their hair in formation too.
Interesting.
So maybe she has like short hair or something?
Possibly. When I did ballet and we would do recitals or competitions, we would have to put stuff in our hair to keep it up, and we would just drench it in hair gel and hairspray to make sure that our hair would stay in place for dance competition. I
don't see, and that's one thing. I don't know if they do hairspray in the UFC for women, for any, well, male or female during a fight, because possibility of that getting in somebody's eye from sweat, and it's not just your own eye, your opponent's, because then it causes unfavorable advantage either way, you know?
Yeah.
I don't really see hairspray coming out with a little bit of sweat. That shit's hard to get out in the shower.
Have you seen how much these motherfuckers sweat when they're
I
fighting?
was gonna say that, and in between rounds when you get a fucking wet towel drenched over your head as well.
Okay, fine. Then I guess the casual corner's point of view is out. They just want to look like
It's
pretty
not out.
ponies.
You had a good solid point in there. I was just
Yeah.
being devil's advocate when it comes to the hairspray idea, because I think that one, because you look at any of those girls, by the time they're done, their shit, even if it's fucking tied down, it's all
blowing out and fucking hanging down for his dad.
Oh yeah, looks like they had a blowout without running a comb through that motherfucker.
Right. Look at Benson Henderson from the beginning of a fight to an end.
If they can't have the hairspray, then I'm going for the route that they just want to look like pretty little ponies from My Pony.
That very well could be too, because there are several of the lady fighters who are, how do I put this, very feminine. I think that's the least offensive way I can put that.
I'm picking up sarcasm.
They say most of them have more balls than most men.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made that some of them are increased testosterone levels compared to the average male. Absolutely, Cyborg, Amanda. But, you know. No, it's just one of those weird little things that, you know, you don't really talk about a lot. You almost never hear them mention it during a broadcast.
I don't think we'll ever hear them talk about it during a broadcast, purely on the fact that it has nothing to do with the fucking fight, as far as what somebody's going to do when they get in there or what's actually going on. They're not going to go, oh, she just got knocked out because of those wonderful ribbons.
Right.
Gave her head movement away. They're not going to say that shit. They're going to say she got fucking caught. We ain't got time for that extra bullshit in there.
Right.
You're going to see the loser at the end of the fight. I couldn't see her because of them damn ribbons.
Right. No shit.
She's so elusive.
Reflective blue ribbons. Shit. But at the same time, if they're up here in their hair, honestly, with the tightness of those braids, they shouldn't be too flashy except for in the back. And if you have your back to your opponent, you're looking to get sucker punched from the behind anyways.
Yeah, that's true. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll figure it out.
What I want to know is, of all the things we talk about on this show, why the fuck did ribbons and hair come up in your ideas all of a sudden?
Because I was watching the replay of that Grasso fight, and Carla Esparza has always braided the ribbon into her hair, and it just always seems like all of her opponents can follow her like the guy wearing Hunter Orange on the paintball field where everyone else is wearing camo. Like, it seems like you can always follow her head, and she almost never gets missed when she gets shots thrown at her face.
Is her hair length longer than mine?
Well,
yeah, a little bit. It's about down to
did you also
build.
Think of this? Her head movement's really not that great either.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's just the factor that made me think about it. Is maybe it's not that her head movement is that terrible. Maybe it's that she's wearing fucking bright checkerboard racing stripes on her goddamn head, and it against that black background of the octagon. Maybe it actually makes it easier to follow that fucking noggin of hers.
I gotta go with her head movement's never been that great.
Yeah, no, that's probably definitely got a factor to play in it too.
But maybe she wants to feel pretty even after she's been beat up.
That very well could be. Oh, but I don't know. We'll move on from there because fucking ribbons. So the next thing I want to talk about from last weekend's UFC. Fuck Yair Rodriguez. Right in his dirty asshole with a big nasty dick. Not clean. Just big nasty dick right in his dirty asshole. Fuck Yair Rodriguez. And not just for the effeminate scratch swipe that he tried to take Jeremy's fucking eye out with and then denied that he did, but for how he acted after the fact. He's lucky, for one, that Herb Dean is the amazing fucking referee that he is and did everything fucking possible to give Jeremy Stephens every second that he could to get back into that fight before the doctor stopped it. And then on top of that, what was clearly an intentional swipe, he still ruled a no contest instead of a disqualification against Yair. And then if that wasn't enough, he throws a hissy fit about that and actually bucked up on Michael Bisping when he went in the octagon to interview him about the incident. And then, as if he hadn't made his bed tight enough for himself, he goes into the post-fight press conference and says that he knew he didn't poke Jeremy in the eye, that Jeremy has to live with the fact that he just quit on a fight. He shouldn't have, and there's no reason for him to accept the rematch.
Yeah.
Luckily, sometimes, not often, very rarely when we want it to, but sometimes the MMA deity smiled down upon us with an instant smite of fucking karma. And since this bullshit has happened, they have already confirmed, concreted, and contracted out. They will be running this fight back again October 18th in Boston. So Yair can fuck himself on that note. He's gonna run that fight back. And I bet you it don't happen the same fucking way this time. But the fact that that actually happened, that prissy little fuck ran his mouth and tried to downplay what he did is just infuriating to such an unrealistic level. I honestly was rooting for him a little bit initially, and now I just want to see Jeremy put him to fucking sleep.
There's only one thing that bothers me more than that. It's how the fans reacted.
Yes, and I was going to get to that as well, but yes.
But back to Yair's sorry fucking ass. I can't wait for that, because when they said 4 weeks from that day, they're going to run it back, I like, fucking ain't right. And in this case, all I'm saying is I hope he gets his ass beat for 3 solid rounds without the god-lucky, stupid, fucking, unbelievable bullshit we're not going to mention, because it's just bullshit, but I hope he gets a train ran on his ass. And then as he's leaving, people from Boston don't tea on that motherfucker and have a tea party right in the aisleways.
You know what the difference is, though? The Boston fans would have more respect, even if he somehow fucking won. They wouldn't do that shit, because that's not something a fucking good crowd does.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, that crowd should be ashamed of themselves. That's something the Philly crowd would do. Bring them to Philly. They'll throw it at Yair. I predict Yair goes to the hospital, win or lose, just like he did with Korean Zombie.
Yeah.
And dude, Jeremy Stephens, he's scary. That is the last guy I want to fight there, just because of what he did to, like, Josh Emmett, and just fuck that.
Yeah, Stephens has legitimate scary power. And to TJ's point here, that was actually the next thing that I was going to bring up. The other reason I'm actually very glad we didn't do a show last week is because it was so fucking infuriating to see that crowd react the way that they did, and to actually throw shit at Jeremy Stephens for getting poked in the eye and then the doctor stopping the fight. That's just a fucking terrible thing to do. That's a horrible way for a crowd to react. And it wasn't a situation where you've got one asshole in the crowd throwing something. The second the fight was stopped, water bottles were coming into the fucking octagon from the crowd. And as they rushed Stephens out with people trying to help cover him up, he was getting beers and bottles and fucking cans and everything under the sun thrown at him as he's being walked out injured. That was fucking horrible.
I really hope, because of the way that they acted, they never do a show there ever fucking again.
At least not for a hot minute. Fuck Mexico City. They don't deserve a fucking performance, in my opinion, because as much as it is an event for the fans, a UFC event of that caliber will bring a shitload of fucking tourist money to a region. Even if it's only for a short while, that's a lot of fighters, that's a lot of employees, that's a lot of training teammates, that's a lot of crew, coaches, family members. Almost nobody goes for a day in these events. They're there for at least a week. In a place like Mexico City, where you've got elevation, Jeremy Stevens was out there 8 weeks ahead of the fight with his whole fucking family, spent $35,000 to secure himself a place for him and his family and his whole fucking team for 2 months to get ready for this fight. And it got stopped in the first fucking round over an eye poke. Don't tell me that this doesn't bring fucking tourist dollars into an industry. So this helped Mexico City as much as it helped the UFC to have this event there. That, I think, is going to be enough to let them know, with the UFC not coming back for a while, fuck you guys, okay? Survive on your own, knowing what you did, and now people are going to be less interested to come down there. Keep your fucking people in check, you know?
And it really fucks them for really big name fighters, because really big name fighters are going to see the shit that happened and be like, why the fuck would I want to go put myself through that if I'm already putting myself through a fucking war for these people to watch? You know.
Yeah, because who's going to want to headline a fucking card down there if that's how you could potentially get fucking greeted after the match is over? No, fuck you. I'll go fight in Vegas. I'll wait.
Yep. Fuck you. Sign me up for when they do another military show on fucking Fort Hood.
Right? Yeah. And you know the crowd's going to be super respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shit. But from there, we'll move along back into some more moderate, less aggravating fucking news. Still a little disheartening and to start off here, but less negative as well. The one and only Rashad Evans has decided that he is now officially considering the potential for returning to fighting. He hasn't made any definitive choices yet, but he's now officially considering returning to fighting. This isn't the first time I've had it out with old guys this week about fighting, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last at this rate. But when you get to the point where you can't compete anymore, not because of your skill set, but because of the mileage your body has taken in the world of MMA, because your age plays a factor in the fight world, who'd have thunk it? You can't be an old guy that still fights. Yes, you can fight as an older guy, as was demonstrated last weekend on the Bellator card, where a 50-year-old man fought a soup can and fucking bragged about it. Antonio, you fuck. But Rashad Evans was a world caliber fighter and is now older. And it's got to the point where, like we were talking about with Shogun, we've got guys who have been there and done that and have seen the top and fallen from it. And now we've got a guy in Rashad, like several other people we've talked about recently, including fucking Uriah. Once they stop, they just get that itch too bad that they can't not come back. And sometimes it doesn't work for the best. Rashad did not have great outings his last few fights, not in the least bit. And it's not to say that he's not a competent and a credible gentleman. He's just not the same Rashad he would need to be able to keep up with the modern era of fighters, because like it or not, the game has progressed from when he left to a point where I don't feel that even if he would have been at the place he needed to be, his time out of the octagon just since his last match is enough to basically put him out of relative competition, in my opinion. But he thinks he wants to do it again, so we're going to have to keep an eye out, because if he does come back, that's going to be one of those, they're either going to throw him a soup can to look spectacular, or they're going to throw him another old guy to fight against, or they're going to give him that Anthony Smith treatment where they let all the legends go in against the young guy that they should easily handle, and then they get fucking mopped again. So we'll see.
I just want to say, I'm having a hard time holding this together. I hope they feed him soup can and he destroys them and then brags about it, just so I can see what his response to you is.
I mean, you know as well as anyone that I'll have a fucking response, and I'm not going to fucking back down from it. I ain't afeard of no 50-year-old man on fucking Instagram, Antonio. You can tell AJ you can suck my ass too, because you can't stand up for yourself, you racist old fuck. But moving on from there, We did get some interesting news this week in the MMA world. I'm not going to say it's the news we expected, but we knew it was a possibility. Apparently, we found out that DC got the permission slip signed from his wife so he can fight one more time. And he has announced that his final fight, win or lose, will be a three-peat rematch with Stipe. Regardless of if the belt is on the line or not, he feels that the trilogy fight with Stipe is more warranted for his legacy than the trilogy fight with Jones. And looking at his track record and the way that he performed when Stipe started throwing those fucking body shots, I kind of understand why he doesn't want to cut that weight and then have Jones kick his ass a third time. But we do now know officially that we will see DC's fat, lankety ass in the ring one more time before he officially retires. And apparently the wife signed off on it. So that means it's actually going to happen this time.
I only have one thing to say about that. I'm so pissed that they're doing that. And that there's no reason for that shit. But you know what? Whatever. They're a horse apiece. Give him the third one. Watch him go down, and then he has no legacy again because another guy's beat him twice. But,
yeah.
I'm just saying that's some bullshit.
I need to see that third fight. I don't care what anybody says. I need to see that third fight. I do. I do. Stipe got dominated that first fucking round, and
the first two rounds, arguably.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love Stipe, and I know a lot of people don't like DC. I take DC for just the fighting. He's out of shape. He's old, and he's got a lot of injuries. But man, I mean, Stipe should. I mean, whatever. Let Stipe beat him the first round. I need to see that third one. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll watch it. Clearly, I'll watch it. I fucking love Stipe, so I'll absolutely watch it. And I very much dislike DC as a fighter, so I would love to see him get his ass whipped for his last fucking fight. But I don't realistically agree with it being against Stipe because the way that it looks now, he's going to get an immediate rematch at the fucking heavyweight title. And
it's if I'm not mistaken, they've already inked that deal.
Not officially. It's still in talks. It's not official. Yeah. It's I believe the way that they phrased it is they're in negotiations to make it official, but nothing quite set in stone yet. Thankfully,
I have this solid feeling once it's done, and I can't say feeling, but I have a solid hope that he stops commentating, which I know is not going to happen, but this is a hope. And that he goes and he starts coaching. I really hope he starts coaching because, man, he'd be a fucking hell of a coach.
I'd be okay with that.
Look, I'm not a DC fan at all. I don't like his personality at all. But I've seen the way the guy coaches, and he's a phenomenal fucking coach. And Absolutely. Any fighter would be lucky to have him as a coach. That is the best praise I can possibly give him is he would make a phenomenal coach, and I hope that's what he does upon retirement.
I 100% agree. I don't care for him as a fighter. I think he's a piss poor commentator. And I think just as a general human being, he's kind of a sack of shit with a shiny gold leaf sprinkled around it for looks. But as a coach is the one place that I have legitimate respect for Daniel Cormier, and I will fucking give him credit where credit is due. He is a phenomenal coach. Fuck him everywhere else, but he's a phenomenal coach.
I also think that he should walk away, though. I don't think he should have took the fight because I think it's still going out. I think he's still going out on top in a way. Like even though he lost his last fight, it was a great fight.
Yeah, it was a title defense. Yeah, to his credit, it was a title defense.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with this, it looks like the UFC, because it's DC and Stipe, is willing to try and rush this fight to make it happen to get that trilogy on the books. My thing about this, if I'm Francis Ngannou, I'm standing in the front of the fucking UFC headquarters with a dolly in my hand, Conor McGregor style. No, this is my fucking time and I will not be denied because arguably Francis Ngannou from his first title fight to now is a 180-degree different fighter. And arguably, there's no one else in the heavyweight division, in my opinion, that has earned a title shot to the extent that he has, rematch-wise, because this would be a DC rematch. Stipe sat on the sidelines for a fucking year waiting for DC to jerk off Brock. I think he can sit on the sidelines for a little while and let Francis get his fucking earned rematch back, is my point.
Yeah.
But we got to see how that plays out because, you know, Daddy Dana hardly ever does what we want him to. So,
especially not when he loves the dick.
That's right. But there are rare occasions, few and far between. They're also fucking seldom. But there are occasions where Dana pulls his head by the ears directly out of his ass and actually does something that the fans want to see and actually are legitimately excited about. The Masvidal Diaz is a perfect example. We got another one of those this week. Maybe not to the same exact extent as Masvidal Diaz, but oh my fucking God, so close. They have announced it is official. It is inked. December 21st in South Korea. Brian T. City Ortega versus the Korean Zombie. Holy fucking shit. Talk about a Christmas present from the UFC. This will be, in my opinion, the legitimate top of the 145 defining fight. I understand Max fucked his world up. I understand that. I really do. And I know you can't talk about the Zombie without talking about Captain Asshat and his elbow from fucking nowhere. I get it. At the same time, I would easily and any day of the week give either one of these two a shot at Max over Volkanovski right now. I get it. Volkanovski's got kind of a name behind him. He's got a little bit of hype. In my opinion, this is the legitimate number one contender fight in the 145-pound division. And I'm fucking super excited to see how this is going to play out. And in South Korea, of all fucking places to let this go down, this is going to be a fucking war in the octagon, ladies and gentlemen.
Hell yes. And not to mention, I'm glad to see fucking Brian Ortega coming back.
Right? And that's the thing, is that I get that he got fucking worked. Max would have killed him in that ring if they let him. He's been out for a long fucking time since then.
And you know, that's this. If they're throwing Korean Zombie at him as a tune-up fight, because look, Ortega is a bad motherfucker, and we all know it. Watched him. He finally took his first L. That's the thing. He took the first L. Look, he was tore up, so I know he needed a lot of fucking time to heal from that. A fucking lot, because he was fucking thrashed during that fight. Just miserably thrashed. And I honestly thought that fight was going to be a lot closer, and I was dead fucking wrong, which just proves how great Max really fucking is. And to see him be sidelined for this long, I don't know if it was because of that injury or if there was some other shit going on because of a loss and how bad he took it. I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate on that, but I'm glad to see him coming back. But if they're thinking this is a good tune-up fight for him, this is not a tune-up fight. This is fucking top caliber fighter that he needs to take just as serious as a fucking Max Holloway fight, because
absolutely
that dude will do the same fucking thing if you let him. And on the other side of that, this is no easy walk in the park for a Korean Zombie either.
No, not at all.
Look, Brian Ortega is the only motherfucker to have knocked out a one-set fighter who had never been knocked out in his entire career. And
it was clean too.
It was clean as fuck. And two, that dude can put some people away with some guillotines. Even readjusting when nobody else should readjust, he readjusts and gets them. I'm just saying, this is going to be a fucking fireworks of a fight, and it's going to be phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be like a zombie contest.
Fuck yeah, Will.
Brian Ortega took a beating and kept walking forward, too. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm very excited for this fucking match. This might be one of the most exciting fights for me of 2019 so far. It's definitely top 5 for me so far as potential goes. But moving along from there, another match that I am extremely interested in that falls a little bit outside of the main casual scope of MMA, if you would. The World BJJ Fest is going on this weekend, and there is a jiu-jitsu only match with one Rafael Lovato Jr. versus Richie the Boogeyman Martinez. These two gentlemen are top of the fucking mountain as far as the jiu-jitsu world goes, and Lovato Jr. just won himself his first gold belt over in Bellator. So he's kind of feeling himself right now. He has to be at this point because it was a hard-fought fucking battle. But both of these gentlemen are amazing jiu-jitsu practitioners, and the two of them are going to be going at it Friday night, tomorrow night. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be, excuse me, not tomorrow night, Saturday night. I apologize. I was looking at the wrong line here. We'll talk about tomorrow night in just a second. Saturday night, World BJJ Fest after the UFC. So don't feel conflicted. You can watch them both. But the thing that I was going to talk about real quick for Friday night, we've got more Bellator action. And we're not going to talk about the whole card because, as is the case with Bellator lately, like we said earlier, it's fluff fucking city. That being said, I'm interested to see what Koreshkov can do in the main event. But the real reason I want to talk about Friday night is because Stitch 'em Up's getting back in the fucking octagon again, and it's going to be bloody. Joe Schilling gets back in the octagon Friday night once again against Tony Johnson, and it is going to be a motherfucking war. I predict that is going to be the best fight on the Bellator card. Joe Schilling is possibly one of the best fighters alive, in my opinion, right now. MMA across the board. Skills in every department you fucking need and want them to as a fighter. And he's a bad motherfucker to boot. So there's great MMA all weekend this weekend if you're looking for something to watch.
It's going to be exciting. I'm ready for that one as well. Not to mention, you're talking about fucking BJJ thing. I forgot that completely that one was going on this weekend. Boogeyman, that dude is a joy to watch.
Boogie and his brother.
Those two, fuck.
Freakazoid, man.
They pull some crazy shit that you just wouldn't think is possible. It's just amazing to watch. It for anybody who is a grappling fan, period. That is going to be a fucking fantastic match right there.
Hell yeah.
The grappling in that's going to be just fucking another fucking level. It's going to be amazing.
And like you were saying with Boogie, with Richie Martinez and his brother, they come from a breakdancing background and got into 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu with Eddie Bravo and mastered all the crazy fucking rubber guard shit. All the locks, all the hooks that Eddie does, that Eddie's 10th Planet system works with a breakdancing mentality. So they're always thinking about different escapes and different movements, different than the traditional BJJ practitioners do. And it makes for a real fucking interesting match. And Lovato Jr. is a fucking great, straight to the point fucking BJJ badass. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be fun to watch if anybody's looking for something interesting to go for after the UFC is come and gone Saturday. You'll be well off to watch that as well. Next thing. Oh, I did forget one thing earlier. Jared Cannonier. He put Hermanson on his motherfucking ass. He did look pretty fucking good. My problem is I don't think he looked title shot good yet, and obviously that's what he's screaming about because he was all hyped on a big win in, enemy territory in Denmark. I get it. Props on a win, on a pretty decent win, but Hermanson was also ranked number 8. You can't really beat the number 8 guy and be like, I'm number 1, because technically you're number 7 now.
And if you're lucky, they bump you to number 6.
Right. Yeah, if they're feeling generous. But
call a top 5er out and then call for the title shot.
Right. Yeah. Earn your way to the top 5 before you call the belt out.
Yeah. When you're in top 5, feel free to start yelling at the belt. Then you have every fucking right to at that point.
That's 185, right?
Yes, sir.
It kind of depends on who wins. It kind of depends on who wins this weekend.
Yeah.
If Whittaker wins, then that makes sense, kind of, because Whittaker already beat Romero. I actually like Paul Acosta before him, but
Acosta's got to worry about USADA before he worries about anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, ain't they trying to like push him up too? Like, get the fuck up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause yeah.
Own that juice, son. That's what I'm saying. But speaking of fights that no one really gives a shit about, but I'm going to talk about anyway, we have come to find out that, like it or not, Cyborg signed almost immediately with Bellator, and very much like we anticipated, they're not going to leave her on the sidelines collecting dust. They're throwing her right in the motherfucking deep end, and they announced, surprise, her first fucking fight will be for the women's featherweight belt of Bellator against Julia Budd, January 25th, to the surprise of almost no one. I mean, it's not like we anticipated her to sit on the sidelines no matter where she went, but she's getting thrown right at the title, literally first fight into Bellator. So we'll see how that plays out.
You know, I only ever have one problem with that. Look, she's a legitimate fighter. We know that. She's tested clean for quite a few years now, so we're past that whole thing. Don't get me wrong, she still looks like she pissed dirty, but
right.
At the same time, she's been pissing clean, so I can't say anything to that nature other than if you sign with a new fucking promotion, you shouldn't get an immediate title fight. I really think, you know what, give her a top fiver and then let her fight for the title. Because there's a number one contender sitting in their spot that you just fucking bumped and ass fucked on the way to the top without even fucking giving the courtesy of a reach around. In this case, no reach rounds in the women's division, but you get what I'm saying here. I'm just saying.
I don't discriminate out loud.
Cyborg, you could say reach around.
Fair enough, touche. But I'm just saying it's some bullshit. Look, I have nothing against Cyborg at all. Part of the reason I think she bailed ship is because I think she was afraid of fighting Nunes again. But that's just hearsay. That's my own ideas. And the other part of that, right here, the scratch. Had she have beat Nunes, I don't think there would have been that issue.
No, not at all.
But being that you got knocked the fuck out, it is what it is. To be honest, I hope she gets knocked the fuck out again. Not that I don't want to see a good fight, but I hope she gets knocked out again so that way they stop just feeding her fucking titles. Because at this point, it's fucking meaningless.
I think that you're right there. I think that also she's getting more money and is able to play around with some of that juice, and that we're going to see a different Cyborg. I think because of her age is why she left UFC, is because of her age and because of USADA. I think that I think Bellator knows more about what's going on. Where's that fight going to take place?
That I did not see. I just saw the date.
Yeah,
so probably Mohegan Sun would be my guess.
I ain't gonna lie, the girl she's fighting, I forget her name. What's her name?
Julia Budd.
Budd. She looks pretty ripped herself.
She's an ex-pro boxer. She's a bad woman, dude. She's no walk in the park.
Yeah. I didn't get to watch. I just seen that tonight. I didn't get to watch her fight yet. I seen that she just fought like 2 months ago, so I'll watch it. But I don't think just the money is an issue with Cyborg. I think it's also that she's going to be able to, in her older age, play around with them testosterones and Mexican supplements a little bit.
Right. I really only have two issues with this fight being made. One, and it fucking pains me that I have to say it, she really, in this situation, should be taking a page out of the playbook of Ben Askren. Technically speaking, he came to the UFC as a champion that had relinquished his belt to do so. and didn't clamor for the title shot, said he would take anyone in the division and started working his way up. Very awkwardly, I guess would be a good word for it. Controversially, maybe. But started wherever they fucking put him to earn his way back to the top. Whereas we get Cyborg, who is jumping the shark and coming right in. Unlike the UFC, Bellator has a legitimate, fully vetted 145 ladies division. This isn't the same 4 ladies who are 135ers and just cut less weight to fight at 45. They have an entire legitimate 145 ladies division over in Bellator. So not only is Cyborg stepping in and jumping the shark, she's not just coming in to fight a couple of ladies that she may see over and over again. There's a whole fucking pool over there of ladies who are, no joke, legitimate 145 badasses. So I don't know that this may actually go the way that she thinks it's going to go unless she's already back on that juice. But you never know. So,
I'm just saying she's probably had a couple smoothies already.
I'm saying some of that special Brazilian acai been known to work wonders. But moving on from a fight that no one wants to see to a fight that most people don't want to see, they also have announced this week, for sure, set in stone, pinky promise, double cross your heart, no takesies backsies, December 14th, 245's card will be headlined by, finally, Marty from Nebraska, Kamaru Usman, versus the nerd-bashiest douchebag in the UFC, Colby fucking Covington, for the unified, I use that air quotes very strongly, 170 pound welterweight belt. It is official. It is happening. Colby has cried publicly about it at least a half a dozen times in the last week alone, trying to say how the UFC bullied him into making this happen. He's not ready and he wouldn't be ready, and they're just trying to damage his brand. And woe is me, the story of Colby. But at least the match is there. He is getting his title shot, however unfucking deserved it may be. He's getting his title shot. So regardless, he can shut the fuck up after this is over. He won't, but he can.
That fight right there, for me, that's a hard one to fucking root for either one of them, because I don't like either one of those motherfuckers.
Right?
To be honest, I'm hoping this is the one and only time that we ever see a fucking double knockout in the title fight, and just watch both of those bastards go to sleep.
I got my bottle of nerd tears right here. Got my bottle of nerd tears ready.
Line up the virgins. Get your megaphone. Women to hang out on you.
I used to fucking hate Colby because I thought that the writing was bad, but I actually have grown to enjoy him quite a fucking bit lately. I think that he says something. It's obviously writers, or he's just really smart. It's probably writers. It's getting pretty fucking good. I actually quite like it. Some of the stuff he said about Jorge Masvidal just cracked me up. I know he's not mad at me because I like Trump, because he loves Trump.
Right. Oh, what a fucking clown. Oh, what a fucking clown.
Jorge Masvidal don't give a shit about
it. Yeah, no, he could not possibly have less fucks to give.
Dude, he'll feed him a fucking 3-piece and a soda too.
No shit. Ugh.
I think that would be a good fight, dude. I would like to actually see that more than Usman. I would like to see Colby versus. I think that would make for entertainment in the beginning, and I think it would actually be a good fight. That's like the wrestler striker fight, but Jorge's got really, he's just all around good fighter. I would like to see that fight, or Masvidal and Usman too. It's kind of the same.
Yeah, real similar on both counts.
But the personal shit would be good with Usman, with Colby and Jorge.
Masvidal, yeah. Ugh.
Masvidal's a lot more quick-witted than Colby.
I don't know if Colby will have enough time to memorize enough lines to be able to keep up with fucking Masvidal. They put them both on a fucking table like that, though. Oh, but moving along from there, they announced it initially at the end of last week, but then announced in day before yesterday what actually caused it. We know that we are not, sadly, I say sarcastically, going to see Holly Holm fighting against Raquel Pennington in UFC Australia this weekend. They have announced this week, they announced Tuesday, that it's not just any injuries. She actually had a ligament tear. So it is legitimate, and it's so tragic because, as we all know, Holly was just one fight away from a title shot. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to
happen. She's always one fight away.
Every match. But moving on from there, they have announced that Cain Velasquez is now officially in negotiations with WWE to take on Brock Lesnar in a main event in a pay-per-view and WWE.
Does that mean Brock's going to lose again?
Well, you see, therein lies the problem. Everyone knows that Cain is a monster, but now he's going into Brock's world, where Brock can quite literally write the ending that he wants and doesn't have to earn it. So this could actually be interesting to see how they play that out, if they let that play out. But, I mean, it's definitely a little cringy just to even have to mention.
Wait a minute. Does that mean if Brock wins, do they get a rubber match in the UFC or in WWE?
I think at this point it would have to be WWE, because I don't think either one of those boys could get past USADA now.
I was being very facetious there. Sorry, my sarcasm didn't come through enough. Yeah, my sarcasm didn't come through enough there. My apologies.
No. It's just I'm just saying, if you've been following Cain for a while, Cain was never a small dude, but now that he's got the luchador mask on, I think they might have him on some of those Mexican supplements again, because he's looking better now than he was when he was in the UFC in his prime. I think it's weird. It's fucking weird. That's what I'm saying. It's fucking weird.
I wonder if he's still in the USADA pool.
I don't think he is. I think he officially withdrew when he retired and went over to the, I can't even remember the name of the organization. It's a WWE owned organization, but it's not actually in the WWE, which is why they're in negotiations now.
Yeah.
And what's sad is, look, I went and watched a couple of his wrestling matches there. He's a fucking terrible wrestler. For a fucking former professional fighter, he's terrible at fucking
taking the shots.
Yeah, he's terrible at taking shots and terrible with the theatrics that go on there. He's definitely not bred for that world. No. Should have stayed in the fight game and just coached some people or something.
Go coach at fucking ATT, man.
Yeah.
Or AKA, somewhere. Abbreviate a fucking set of letters, and there's a gym with those on it, and they'll let you coach. Fuck.
Do you think there's a chance that Daniel Cormier goes to pro wrestling?
Yeah, he's already said it. He's got an open contract with WWE for after he retires from the UFC.
I think that's happening, dude. I think Cain and DC are going to be tag teaming over there.
That was originally part of the suspicion, is that DC supposedly signed his contract with the WWE first, with the clause or the stipulation that it's not enacted until he officially retires from the UFC, which is, I think, at least a small part of why he never actually said he was done. It was the whole, I'm going to talk to my wife and we'll see how things go from here shit. Because once he says those words, I'm retired, he's Vince McMahon's fucking property now.
Yeah. Hey, it makes me wonder. I'm noticing they're snatching up a lot of former pro MMA fighters. A lot. And they're snatching up, at one time, fucking big stars. So, yeah. There's some weird I'm just saying there's some weird dick touching going on here. Some pull touching between Dada Dana and Vince McMahon, yeah, that's what I'll call them. I'll call them together Vince White.
There you go.
because I'm pretty sure they're doing some of this. They're
Dana McManning.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the third time. That's the third time we mentioned Dana White with some gay activity. I mean, he's got to bend the knee to the Triple D.
Right? He's getting into that WWE docking method. But moving along from there, it has been officially confirmed this week by the UFC, to the surprise of almost no one, but the bated breath sighs of most of us. The UFC has officially and for good released BJ Penn. His contract is completely and officially null and void. He is no longer a UFC employee, as I absolutely agree he shouldn't be. It just sucks that it had to come down this way. BJ Penn is absolutely a fucking living legend and one of the undeniable biggest pioneers of the UFC and mixed martial arts in general. But Jesus, titty fucking Christ, you want to talk about having a bad streak of fuck-ups outside the octagon. He's making John Jones look like a fucking choir boy right now, and that is a feat unto itself. On top of being 1-6 in his last 7 fights.
2-6. He won his last
2-6. That's right. I apologize. 2-6. Excuse me. At this point,
won the last one.
Does matter. Yeah, it does matter at this point. But Jesus, fuck. The guy literally is one of the only fighters in history to fight from 135 all the way up in every fucking weight class to fighting at 252 as a heavyweight, and was a contender legitimately in every fucking weight class, as well as holding the belt for a hot fucking minute at 155, I believe. But Jesus, this man has fallen so hard off. It's one of those situations where we've been hoping as fans for years to see him gracefully retire, and he just fucking refused and got beat and just devalued his legacy. And then you see him starting to get into just straight up bar fights in Hawaii now. Multiple times, not once, not twice. I believe he's got 4 in 8 months now. And at least 2 of them he's been arrested for. So there's potential criminal charges pending from them at that. So I can only at this point hope that BJ gets his shit together and does not go actively looking for another contract with Bellator or Ryzen or ONE FC, all of which I am absolutely sure would offer him and may offer him one. But I genuinely hope he does not take any of them. I hope BJ just gets his shit together and opens a fucking gym in Hawaii and relaxes.
I think the saddest thing of all of this for me is knowing that there's a lot of younger, newer fans that never actually got to watch him in his prime. So all of they've seen is this shit show. They had never actually seen him in his prime when he was fucking godlike, being able to bounce from division to division and legitimately put up phenomenal fights every fucking time. I mean, go back and look at his really old shit, and it was great. The fall from grace here is just fucking horrible to see. Like it makes me cringe just miserably thinking about it, because he was honestly, there was a point where he was my favorite fighter for a very long time. I mean, a fucking long time. Anytime BJ Penn was on a card, I was guaranteed to watch it. It didn't matter where the fuck I was in the world, because he was at the top of the game when I was still in the military, and it was fantastic to watch. You knew he was going to be on a card, or Nick and Nate were on a card at the same time with him. Shut up and take my fucking money. And to watch him fall the way he's fallen now, it's beyond saddening. It's that one thing we're always talking about is no one to lay them down, dude.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, if these other organizations really love MMA, they won't even offer him another fucking deal. And actually, people should just fucking give him money just to fucking walk. I'm sure UFC has to pay him something since there was fights on his contract, or at least a fight on his contract. So he's got to get some kind of money. Hopefully he gets some kind of help, and hopefully this story ends up like in a couple years. Is he in the Hall of Fame already? If not, maybe he gets inducted into the UFC. I don't think
he's been inducted yet.
Yeah, hopefully he gets inducted and he gets to retire that way. Like maybe get to make a speech or something after he gets his head cleared, because there's obviously something going on. Yeah. There's something going on in his head. I don't know if it's drugs. I don't know if it's because of the blows to the head, the CTE or whatever. Whatever.
It could be a lot of those factors, but I think the other factor that comes down to is how did he spend the money he made?
Mm-hmm.
Is he to that point in his life where he's pissed away everything that he earned? And
yeah, because there should have been a substantial amount. Maybe granted, maybe not like McGregor fucking level, because let's face it, Conor set the bar pretty fucking high for cash. But
Robbie Lawler level, Lawler level,
exactly.
He's got money.
BJ was in there in the pay-per-view moments alone. Just the pay-per-view points that he should have gotten throughout his career alone should have been enough for a nice little nest egg, unless he's fucking around.
Well, and not to mention, look, he lives on the Big Island of Hawaii. That dude could legitimately be running a fucking MMA gym and popping out some top-notch competitors just based on his experience and training alone and coaching. I have a feeling that a lot of what this boils down to, and I honestly don't know, so this is pure speculation on my part, I have a feeling that he just blew cash. I have a feeling that he just was not financially responsible. And so this has been a last-ditch effort to try to make some money. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, for those young fans that are new to MMA and are now really following it, they've only watched him in his last 6-7 fights. They're not getting the true BJ Penn.
No, not at all.
They're nowhere near. It's nowhere near close. If you look, how long was his fucking hiatus before he came back for those 6-7 fights? It was quite a few years.
A couple years, yeah.
And so there's some kids that may have never seen that guy fight and go, who the fuck is BJ Penn? And he's just getting wrecked. Oh, he's some soup can that they're throwing at people. No, he's not a fucking soup can. He's just from a different era. And look, this is why I say he's not a soup can. He's fucking legendary in his time. Now, I can't call him a soup can now because of that. He may not have the same level as everyone else is at now because the game has progressed so far, but I will never call him a soup can ever. The dude does not deserve that, no matter how bad he's fucked up over the last couple of fights, no matter what he's done outside of it. Look, I'm not one for giving a lot of people second chances or third chances or fourth chances. I'm just praying to God this dude can get his shit together because, like I said before, for a very, very long time, he was one of my favorite reasons to watch MMA. It was one of my go-to fighters where I knew every time I tuned in for a BJ fight, it was going to be a fight. He was going to be fucking licking blood off of his fucking gloves and just going to war. And it was a sad thing to watch him come back because I could tell when he first made that first comeback fight. It was like, no, you should have stayed gone. And for me, it's sad because of the new generation. They don't get to see that actual legacy as it happened like I did. They're just catching the tail end of what looks like a nasty fucking train wreck.
Yeah, if they don't look it up. I mean, that is what's good about the generation that's growing up now is they can go back and watch it if they really want to see. Hopefully, like the announcers say it and stuff like that. Like hopefully, because when I see them, and I actually have family members that haven't watched UFC for as long as I have. They haven't, they're just coming into it, and I tell them like this may be the best fighter of all time, and they're like, well, his record's 30 and fucking 20 or something. Right. Yeah, but you gotta fucking go back and watch it because he's still, even with that record, is one of the best of all time.
Absolutely. So I will say this. I won't say that he is a soup can, but he's definitely wearing a Chef Boyardee fight kit at this point.
Yeah, he's training.
Yeah. He's so fucking close, but man, I hope he gets his shit together. I legitimately hope he gets his shit together.
And I really hope he doesn't fight again. God, I really hope he doesn't.
And actually, I said he's training with the thing on, but that's actually what it looks like with his fights is that he doesn't train anymore.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going in there winging it.
Yeah. And in his defense, it takes two to tango in a bar fight. It does.
True.
I've watched a couple of them videos, and he's not innocent, but the guy he's fighting isn't innocent either. I mean, he's got dropped in a couple of them too, and you don't get dropped unless you swing. So.
Yep. Very true. Very true. But moving along from there, one of the biggest and most ridiculous pieces of fluff from this last fucking weekend's worth of events was from Bellator 227 on Friday night, where MVP Michael Venom Page fought another freshly minted legitimate fucking soup can and, surprise, surprise, beat him, and then was an asshole about it. There was so much shit talking between the two of them during the fight. Dan Murgliata actually had to stop the two of them and give MVP a hard warning for sportsmanship, which is an actual rule in the fucking new guidelines. After it was over, Murgliata had stopped the fight. He stood up the other kid and went to go try and have them shake hands after the match. You know, like respectful adults do more often than not. And Michael Venom Page made one of these motions at him. Murgliata leans over and says, look, you're one of the most talented fighters I've ever refereed. Don't win like this. Shake the guy's hand. He laughed at him and went, ha! So as Murgliata turned around to walk away, he said under his breath, what a fucking piece of shit. Legitimate bona fide comment, 100% fucking earned. One of MVP's cornermen heard him and told him, and MVP literally took his whole post-fight press conference backstage to cry about how he feels wronged by the referee and demands an apology and can't believe he's being treated with this much disrespect coming from the guy who rolled a fucking pokeball at a gentleman with a fractured skull. He can't believe he's being shown this much disrespect. Now, to his credit, Dan Murgliata has come flat out right away and said, yes, absolutely, that's what he said. No, it was not the right thing to do. He should have never said that, and he did apologize for saying that, and then immediately agreed unanimously with Scott Coker that he will never referee another MVP fight. But the moral of the story for me here is that, not surprisingly, MVP is a piece of shit. He was a bad sportsman during the fight, got a hard fucking warning from the referee about it, and then was a bad sportsman after the fight was over, and then pretended to play the victim because someone said words about him after he just won his punching match. Fuck MVP. The guy has only faced 2 legitimate contenders in the last 3 years. One of them went to a draw because it was a boring fucking fight. The other one, he was unconscious in under 5 minutes because he got his ass beat, which is why he doesn't fight legitimate challengers. He fights soup cans because Bellator will throw those to him. But the fact that he had the audacity to make the statement about how he had been wronged by an official and demanded an apology because he couldn't believe he was being talked to like that after the match just kind of befuddles me a little bit, even from somebody as pretentious and fucking annoying as Paige is. I still think it was a little bit over the fucking top.
Look, you can be a tough motherfucker in the ring, but when you got skin as thin as a fucking 101-year-old, you can go fuck yourself. Stop being a piece of shit, and people will stop calling you that. How about clean your fucking act up, act like a decent human being. You're literally getting paid to punch people. There's no reason to go and fucking suck a donkey's dick doing it. I mean, literally, you can take your happy ass down to Mexico in Tijuana, and you can go perform donkey shows because that is the level that you were at.
Allegedly.
Oh no, not allegedly. I'm saying that motherfucker can go do it. I'm not even allegedly.
There's nothing to say that something like that would happen in Tijuana. It's all theoretical.
Fair enough. That part of it, yes. But him, if it is theoretical there, he can go and actually make it happen.
Absolutely.
Oh no, I fucked a donkey in Tijuana.
Was MVP there with you?
But...
Yeah. So my biggest gripe about that fight was I think it was stopped too early. I think his celebration made Dan Miragliotta stop the fight, and I hated that shit. Now, was the guy stunned? Was he? Yes. But
absolutely.
The fact that MVP walked away and celebrated, I think Dan should have let that dude get the fuck up and finish the fight.
Yeah, I agree.
I kind of take Brendan Schaub's stance on during the fight. If they want to talk shit, they should be able to talk shit. At the end, you should shake hands. It's fucking over and done with. You got to punch it, especially if you're the winner. If you're the winner, you should. And when MVP fought Douglas Lima, that's when I really knew I didn't like him. Because I know that MVP respects Douglas Lima out of all the fighters, even though he shows almost no respect. I know he respected him, and he almost didn't want to shake his hand there. If you go back and watch it, he's like, all right.
Yeah, it almost looks forced.
Yeah, like it's like you have no sportsmanship. Like you were beaten fair and square at your own game. Like you wanted to play this jumping in and out thing. You wanted to stand sideways, and you got beat at it. You got beat fair and square. And I didn't like how it was stopped. I don't think it was Dan's fault. I think it was just he's the referee. He knows better than me, but it's just that celebration right there. Yeah. I think Dan should have let the guy rejuvenate because like Jeremy Stevens will jump right on that shit and make sure you're fucking finished. Yeah. Make sure you're finished until the referee stops you.
Yep,
you know, the only thing that I would like to see out of MVP, and this is purely for my own enjoyment, I would like to see him get signed with the UFC and thrown right into the deep end, where he can realize he is just a fucking piece of shit that gets a mud hole stomped in him and walked fucking dry, and is forced
and get cut,
and then forced to shake somebody's hand because his block has been knocked off so fucking hard he doesn't realize he's shaking somebody's hand. And to be honest, the only thing that would make that any greater was if he was fighting somebody like Michael Bisping, where Michael Bisping said, "Oh, by the way, you got knocked out," as he's shaking his fucking hand.
Right.
I'm just saying, even though I know that's not going to happen, but in this wonderful ideas of grandeur that I'm having right now, watching that happen, it just sounds fucking fantastic.
Or Yoel Romero knocks you out and then kisses you on the lips.
Right. I know you.
I know you, MVP.
No.
I honestly, to be honest, stop feeding him soup cans. Let him go fight the deep end so everybody can see what a piece of garbage that man really, truly is. And show that how bad his poor sportsmanship. Look, this is a fight game. Sportsmanship is kind of a wishy-washy thing, in my opinion, when it comes to this. However, there is a certain level of respect to anybody who is willing to step into a cage with you and fight that you need to fucking have. This dude doesn't have it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if one day we catch that motherfucker on the news because he caught a bullet from somebody because he disrespected them.
Yeah. I mean, how bad, like, when you win, like, how can you still be mad? It's so weird. Like, you won, dude. You fucking won.
Well, and his little display like that is actually part of the reason why I'm not against the sportsmanship rule that started the whole fucking rigmarole. I understand to a certain degree, like the fucking asshole himself, Dana says, this isn't the be nice business. This is the fight business. But at the same time, shit like what MVP did, I feel is part of the reason why they do that. Because if you watch that match, he was stalling the match because he was more interested in standing back and literally talking shit to the guy than he was actually fighting. And it was actually stalling the match from progressing, which is why Miragliotta gave him the hard warning. So I 100% agree with that. And I feel like I agree with you 100%. I feel like Dan should have legitimately let the dude get up while MVP's back was turned and walked away, and let him come over and fucking Donkey Kong pound him when he ain't looking, because that's the type of bad sportsman-like bullshit that rule is created to stop. And that's what that initial hard warning was for. So, I mean, I get that it's not the be nice business, it is the fight business, but at the same time, when you're literally stopping and stalling the match like that asshole was, I 100% agree. Give him a hard warning and then threaten to take a fucking point.
The only other thing I think that would have made this better is if Coker would have went, you know what? Because of your poor fucking attitude and you didn't like what Dan had to say, Dan's going to ref every one of your goddamn fights.
Right, yeah, Dan's your permanent ref from now on.
Because you're a cocksucker and you deserve it. And you deserved every bit of fucking lip service that fucking you received there, because guess what? It was well earned, you piece of fucking human trash.
Yep. I agree profusely. Fuck him on so many levels. But the last little piece of news that I want to take just a second to talk about, we've been all over this story like stink on shit since it was even first just a rumor. We have followed it through to fruition. We are now able to officially and very fucking happily say that the contract has been inked. Nick Newell is now officially a member of the Bellator roster, and his next fight will be back in his fucking hometown at Mohegan Sun at Bellator 232, the end of this month, October 26th. He is now officially on the Bellator roster, inked a multi-fight deal, and he's getting right the fuck back into it. Good on you, Scott Coker.
That is by far my favorite fucking headline. It really is.
That's why I wanted to save that for last.
He put the fucking first round tap out, fucking choke that motherfucker senseless. He's going to be trouble for a lot of people because you know what? He fights in a completely different way for a completely different reason, and people aren't fucking used to that. They're used to fighting able-bodied fighters. And I say able-bodied lightly because he's very able, but most people are used to fighting somebody with two hands where they can grab onto an extra wrist. You can't grab onto an extra wrist when he doesn't have it. Just saying, makes things a lot more interesting. Good luck finding somebody to train with like that.
Yeah.
No shit.
I like when Brendan Schaub said something about, like, I would never get choked out by one-armed man. And he's like, I would choke out Brendan Schaub. Yeah. I wonder, how much does an arm weigh? Because that is a little bit of a theory that I've heard before somebody say. But I wonder how much, like, an arm weighs with the weight.
It can vary. It can vary, like, you figure a human brain weighs about, let's see, what's it, 8 pounds, I think, if I remember correctly, because it's mostly water weight.
That's what Jerry Maguire said.
Oh, from the are you talking from just the shoulder down or from the elbow down?
If he minuses this to this, that adds almost 10 pounds to his body when he's making weight. So he's almost weight class bigger.
You're probably in that neighborhood because depending on muscle mass and how much you have in that limb, it can be anywhere from like probably, I would say 8 to 20 to 25 pounds, depending on the size of your fighter. Yeah. You figure, look, the good solid majority of your mass is in the middle, but your legs are a good 30% of your body. Your arms are probably 15%. So you figure, I would venture to guess anywhere from 10 to 25 pounds, depending on the size of the arm.
Around 10 pounds, I mean, that could go either way. Either he has to cut less weight or he's heavier than the other fighters. Like maybe his weight cuts aren't as bad.
Although, you got to remember, he's not missing a whole lot of his arm.
That's what I was going to say. He's only missing just from the wrist up or from the wrist down.
It's about, from what I can tell, it's probably based on the look of the rest of his arm and his other arm, it's probably about 3 to 4 inches below the wrist.
Yeah, just past.
Because you're probably looking at about this from the edge of my elbow here to here. You're probably coming about right here because he's about.
That's about right.
He's about two-thirds of his forearm.
He's got about that choke. Yeah, he locked onto his own arm.
He's got about
cranked in.
it looks like about 2/3, somewhere in there, of his forearm left. So I mean,
yeah, I'd say that's definitely enough to make at least a couple pounds difference.
I mean,
yeah, he's probably. You figure if you just drop your hand and let your hand hang, feel how much it weighs if you're just letting it weigh dead weight. That's at least 1 pound, 2 pounds right there, minimum. That's.
I mean, it's a sport of inches, so I mean, any little bit kind of helps. So,
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't have a fucking hand, but
You know, that's probably why he's so good at fucking choking people. Because you know what? It's easier to slide that in there because you don't have to go around the outside of your hand and pass your knuckles to get under a neck. You can slide that little nub in there and just go to fucking town.
definitely a possibility.
I'm excited to see what he does. I really hope he makes a run at the fucking title. Just to stick fucking
He's
Dana
got
for
a damn
saying no.
good chance, man. He is a great fighter, and he has a damn good chance of going over for a fucking legit run at that title. So,
If he wins the title, the only thing that would make it better is a post to say "fuck you, Dana. You should have given me that shot."
right, absolutely.
that's the fourth Dana fuck joke.
Right.
Yep. That tends to be a lot of my what I think about when I think about some of these other fighters that should legitimately be in the UFC that are not, because we have stupid shit like the Contender Series, bringing up soup cans and touting them as world champions.
Yeah, it does happen more often than not. But like I said, once in a great fucking while, once in a blue moon, we do get a legitimate good piece of news like this. And that's exactly when I wanted to save that for the last piece of news that we talk about in the news and recent events segment. So, that being said, that will bring us to the meat and potatoes of this particular episode here. The main reason we are having this episode, UFC 243 Australia, Whittaker versus Adesanya. This card is such an interesting card. It's got some fluff. Every card we've seen all year long has had some fluff. It's absolutely got some there. It's not without. But to their credit, the main card is fluff-free. We're not going to talk about the early prelims because it's basically no-namers, nobodies, and a couple of Aussies. They're there to get their moment. They're on the UFC card. I get it. Good on you. Nobody really worth discussing. No big fights on the early prelims. The prelims themselves, still a little fluffy. Megan Anderson is an Aussie, but she's also a fairly legitimate fighter. She's on there opening up the prelims. Then we've got in my opinion, the most anticipated fight on the prelims, which I'm still not sure how it isn't the premier fight, but whatever. Dana does weird shit sometimes. We can't control him. But that would be Brad Quake Rydell. That is the teammate of Israel Adesanya and Dan Hooker and Kara France and all those guys who, after Dan Hooker's last fight, Dana actually gave him Brad Riddell's contract to take back to City Kickboxing in New Zealand and give to him himself and let him know that not only did he get signed to the fucking UFC, but he's fighting on the 243 card with all of his fellow teammates to represent New Zealand, to represent City Kickboxing, where all these guys fucking train out of. Brad Riddell has got a lot of fucking hype coming in off of him. That, I feel, is going to be probably one of the biggest debuts we have seen from a Zoolandia fighter yet. All the guys from down there have all made their own legitimate splash, and now it seems that it is Brad Riddell's turn. So that is absolutely going to be the fight that I would say, more so than the Megan Anderson fight, to watch during the prelims.
I'm 100% behind you on that one, because you know what? Especially the why is that not the headline fight? You've got the main event and co-main event both out of that gym.
Right.
Make him the main prelim fight, because you know what? You're spotlighting the gym anyways with this.
Yep.
But he's training with two of the best fucking fighters in the UFC right now. I won't say the best of the best, but one of them, yes. The other one is goddamn up there.
Yep.
That tells me they're doing something right out of that fucking gym. he should be on that headline card. However, I understand the hesitancy to put him there in the headline prelim spot because debut fight. I get that. I'm just glad they didn't put him on the early prelims because that would have fucked a lot of people out of getting to actually enjoy him.
He originally was. He originally was going to be the premier fight on the early prelim card until Holly pulled out. When Holly pulled out and they had to start shifting things around, they pulled him off the earlies onto the actual prelims themselves.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that fucking thing.
I definitely agree. I would love to see him in that premier spot for the prelims, but I also understand this is his debut. It's in front of his hometown crowd, and more than that, well, hometown as close as they can get because we've never been to New Zealand with the UFC yet. But on top of that, this is going to be the single largest in-person UFC event in history. 73,000 seats in Marvel Arena. They have never put on a UFC event this big before. So I do understand a little bit. He's been fighting down there locally. He's got his boys. He's used to the scene to a degree. But this is a scene that even the pros have never been on a scale this large before as well. So I understand a little bit of the hesitancy to keep him out of that premiere, but I'm also glad they bumped him off the earlies onto the prelims, so there will be more people in the seats, more eyes to get to see his debut as well.
That, and it's on ESPN too, so all the people that are tuning in around the world to see it are actually getting a fucking fantastic fight, and I'm positive he's going to do just brilliantly. Because if you're training with those boys day in and day out, you're obviously learning a thing or two. You've taken your fucking licks. You deserve to fucking be here, especially if you. I'm guarantee you, he sparred with Adesanya and he sparred with Hooker. Yep. Guaranteed, and I'm sure they've teed off on him a couple times, but he's managed to stay in there. And you know what? I have a feeling we're about to see another new 155er that's going to take the fucking UFC by storm because that gym, they obviously are doing something right with their fighters.
Well, and the main thing that people don't seem to realize, well, I shouldn't say don't seem to realize, they're starting more now to realize than they have before. The key pin in that gym, the guy that all of these fucking great fighters coming out of New Zealand, coming out of city kickboxing, all have in common, the one thing is the common denominator amongst all of them is the fucking coach, Eugene Berriman. He has been with Adesanya for over a decade. He's been with Hooker for almost a decade. He's been with Whittaker France since he decided to start training. He is producing some world-class killers out of city kickboxing down in New Zealand. And this is going to be our chance to see one of the next wave of his progressive students here. And Berriman has talked very highly about Riddell since they announced that he's got his contract and all that as well. I have very little doubt that this guy is going to come in there and be ready for fucking battle because he's not going to half-ass it. He's got a great crew around him, and he's got a goddamn good head coach that's producing world-class talent right now. So I'm kind of excited to see what the guy's going to bring to the UFC. I have very little doubt it's going to be an exciting fucking fight.
I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know much about these guys. I'll just give some facts. Brad Riddell, 2-0, and Jamie Malarkey, 12-2, which is interesting to me. The 14 fights for Jamie Malarkey and two
pro fights, yeah.
Yeah, for Brad Riddell, and I'm guessing both these guys are taking Brad Riddell. Interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
But moving along from the end of our prelim discussion here, that will bring us into the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes on this particular episode here, the main card for UFC 243. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, unfortunately, we are not going to see that Holly Holm versus Raquel Pennington fight, which is such a shame because just one win and she could have had a title shot. But from there, we move on. They are going to be opening the main card with some heavyweights. They are going to be big boys throwing down to get things kicked off. Justin Tafa, who is damn, I forgot his fucking name now. Mark Hunt's protege. Damn, I had brain fart there. Mark Hunt's protege, Justin Tafa, versus Jorgen De Castro, another undefeated guy versus another undefeated guy. We've got a Mark Hunt prospect here coming in to try and, get a little bit of heavyweight love, show some credit back to that Mark Hunt school. We'll see how that goes. Not going to give a ton of time to those guys because it's just the opening fight. It's not the greatest. It's a little fluffy, but not bad. We are going to start, though, with the Luke Jumea versus Diego Lima fight. This one, not that I don't have faith that a Mark Hunt protege can be an exciting fight, but for me, this is where the card is really going to open up and start to get crazy. I'll say this. Of the two brothers, Diego is not my favorite Lima. That being said, Douglas isn't in the UFC, so you got to root for the one that you got. Hopefully this isn't a precursor to what we're seeing with the Pettis brothers, but, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, unfortunately. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see. But this is going to be a battle of intense mediocrity. Neither one of these guys are top prospects. Neither one of these guys are on a big rocket ship heading towards the title, but neither one of these guys are soup cans either. Both of these gentlemen have a good career behind them, established. They're not new, they're not green, but they're not upper echelon fighters, I guess we should say. They're not soup cans, but they're not top tier guys either. But that being said, neither one of these guys are really bad. Diego Lima has serious fucking power and really good striking. Jumea has interesting footwork and a little bit of an off-time style that can pose problems for some really, really great fighters in the past. So it's not as if it's a soup can battle, but it's not exactly a title contender eliminator either. But in this situation, these guys, I feel, are stylistically such an even match that I can't call a winner. I'm just excited that the fight is on there because I think this is going to be a good kind of a warm-up builder fight. It's good. There's definitely going to be some fireworks here, and I feel just a little bit more than the heavyweights that are opening up, but not quite as much as we're going to see when we get into the next fight
here. For this one, I feel kind of similarly. However, the only thing I will say is because both of these guys, they're still relatively new to the UFC, this is a good platform for both of them to do a little bit of shining.
Right.
It's a good place for somebody to step up and say, yeah, I'm ready for that next spot. I mean, Diego is definitely not his brother. No. Definitely nowhere. But I'll say it right now, I think his brother is way better than he is.
Yeah.
At least currently. That could always change.
Right.
This is the fight business. We know that. However, Luke Jumea, on the other hand here, he does have a really fucking strange style, which is, it's cool to watch. And I don't know if anybody's looked. His takedown accuracy is fucking fantastic. Yeah. There's not many people who have as good a takedown accuracy as he does. But he's still rough around the edges, as is Diego. So it's going to be a tough fight to call on who's going to actually win it. I think it's a coin toss, but I definitely think this gives them a little chance to shine. And being as that first heavyweight bout is going to get things kicked off, hopefully with a bang. Hopefully that'll have the crowd hyped enough to get these guys hyped while they're in there to actually shine and put on a good show. Because, I mean, you got some really good fucking fights on the backside of this. If you're looking for a paycheck, you better be ready to fucking shine in this fucking card. Because those top couple of fights there have fucking bonuses written all over them. So, I'm not going to call a winner on it, but I think it'll definitely be interesting. And I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I'm hoping Diego's taking some lessons from his brother, because maybe that'll help him out here. But only time will tell. We'll find out Saturday. And in the meantime, say coin flip. It's either going to be Brazil or New Zealand. We don't know.
I didn't know they were brothers. I'm like that kind of guy where, like, you know, like when somebody says like their last name, you're like, oh, are you related to Brad? So I just always assume they're not brothers, but they're actually brothers. I just learned that now.
Douglas and Diego,
Is Luke, is that his hometown? Is he in like Australia or something?
I think.
No, he's from New Zealand.
I was gonna say, I think he's a Kiwi. Yeah.
So it's kind of his area. That's why they're probably fighting, is because it's kind of his area.
Oh yeah, they're still going to give him the hometown treatment.
Yeah.
He's not with the city kickboxing crew, but he's still another New Zealander coming over for this New Zealand versus Australian kind of rivalry.
Yeah. So this is I feel like this card's a lot of just coin toss. There's like really like solid, good, like equal fights on this.
Yeah.
Which UFC is usually good for, but these are all rough to call. They really are. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. I wouldn't even begin. It's got to be the family get-together's got to be awkward.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm in the UFC. I'm in Bellator.
Right.
I'm the better fighter, though.
Right. And and as I was saying, that's going to make an interesting situation at the dinner table as well, because Douglas is fucking killing it in Bellator. But
did you see I won my last fight against Luke fucking Juvenile?
Yeah, exactly. Diego's still got that UFC contract. So
I guess the only other thing that makes me wonder is his brother going to corner him?
That's a good question. That's a good possibility as well.
I mean, that would be fantastic to see, because I love seeing that kind of cross-promotion shit.
Right.
Kind of forced down the UFC's throat, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
Because I really hope that's the way that MMA starts to go, where they start doing more of those cross-promotions, a la Bellator, 1FC, you know.
Well,
or Ryzen and
with Liz Carmouche, their fucking Bellator ladies champion, Liam McFarlane from 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, was there in her fucking corner in her Bellator gear.
Yep.
TJ Dillashaw corners
until the fight. Yeah.
Yeah. TJ Dillashaw corners a guy in Bellator. What's his name? I forget.
Juan Archuleta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just fought this last weekend again for the belt against Pitbull. Got his ass beat, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Did not see that one coming. But from there, that will move us along to what I feel is going to be the first of a series of firework-inducing fights that are going to bring this night to a fucking crazy head. Tai Tuivasa versus Sergey the Polar Bear Spivak. This is where the heavyweights are going to get crazy. The opening heavyweight fight is going to be interesting. This heavyweight fight is going to be fucking exciting. Tai Tuivasa is a young kid with a lot of fucking hype behind him and a great fight IQ. Not always the best conditioning, though. He's known to have a little bit of the big guy problem where that gas tank just don't last all the way to the end of the fight every time. That being said, when he can get his game on and get his will imposed early, he is a bad motherfucker to have to stand across an octagon from. But the kid that he's going up against here, Spivak is 9-1, and his fucking highlights are pretty goddamn impressive. The kid, just like Tuivasa, has got serious fucking one-punch power, and his grappling is a little bit much compared to Tai's. Tai can grapple, but would absolutely prefer to strike. Whereas it almost seems like Spivak can and will strike, but he prefers to use a little bit more grappling, do a little bit more wearing down, take the energy out, slow him down a little bit more, which we have seen be a big fucking problem for Tai Tuivasa before. And look, I like the fucking guy, and I would love to see him win, but I can absolutely go another UFC event without seeing a fucking shoey. I like Tai, and I really, really don't have anything against him in the octagon. But for fuck's sake, man, if you have never heard of or seen what a shoey is, just Google Tai Tuivasa shoey after this is over, and don't tell me what you think of it. That being said, I think Ty is going to take this one. I think he's been doing enough work. I think he's got his striking crisp enough. I think he's got his conditioning is way better now than it has been in most of all of the fights we've seen from him before. He looks to be in better shape. He seems to be feeling better. His coaches are saying he's doing all the right things. So it's time for us to see if we're going to really get that Tai Tuivasa who's motivated and doing the right things to start to actually get set on the path to being a top ranked heavyweight, or if he's still going to be the young kid that he legitimately is, still having fun and still messing around. This is one of those situations where Sergey is going to come in there and he's not coming to play. He's not coming to giggle. He's not coming to grab ass and touch butt on the beach. He's coming to fucking take your head off, and he's a very capable opponent with the potential to do that. I just feel like in this situation, with that hometown fucking crowd screaming behind him, I think Ty is going to be able to take this one.
All right. I have to wholeheartedly disagree with you on one solid fact here. I look forward to the fucking shoey.
Me too.
I fucking look forward to the shoey. That is one of my favorite fucking things about watching him win fights. The fucking shoey. But you know what? I think this is part of the reason why you don't like that so much. We live in the United States of America. That is not a thing here. Where he is from, that is a big thing. It's not just him. You look at fucking rugby players from Australia. You look at other fighters from Australia. They do shoeys. That's not an abnormal thing there. In the States it is. However, to me, that's fucking glorious. Dude. You just got done fighting. Your immune system's on overdrive anyways. Fuck it. Drink it out of a shoe that might have a little athlete's foot. Fuck it. You're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like Tai Tuivasa a lot. I like the way he fights. I like his attitude. He seems nice during interviews. I'd like to see him, he's got 2 losses behind him. I'd like to just the last 2 fights. So I'd like to see him win this one in his hometown. Do the damn shoey. I mean, when I was 26, I'll do a fucking shoey. Maybe not at 36. I ain't gonna do a shoey. I got a lower immune system, but at 26, sure. Yo, his opponent's younger than him too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of my problem with it is that to a certain degree, I can understand that adrenaline-fueled fucking psychosis right after the match. Your adrenaline's fucking going. Your immune system's cranked to fucking 12 anyway. I kind of get it.
You feel like he's doing it every Tuesday.
Well, the problem is you can look, and he went on Brandon Schaub and Brian Callen, the fighter and the kid, and they did a series of shoeys in a calm, relaxed setting, and they didn't do the same kind of shoeys that you see him do after the matches. They did what he refers to as the more traditional shoey, and that curdles your fucking stomach a little bit when you watch it. I don't care how fucking iron gut you are.
Look,
that's what I think of when I see him doing that now.
Dude,
is the fucking fighter in the kid shoeys.
That's the problem, is you're looking at it in the wrong light.
He did it. It's his fault.
Just take it as what it is. Look, it's his way to celebrate. He's young. Look, if I was in his position, I would probably do a fucking shoey too if I won. I'm not gonna lie. You're not gonna catch me doing one right now. Fuck no. I'm well past that age category. I tend to just sip on whiskey. I don't go slamming beers anymore. But in that situation, my adrenaline's pumping. Somebody hands me a fucking shoe full of beer. You're goddamn right I'm going to pound that son of a bitch.
Okay, so this is where, I'm sorry, but this is where, so for the audience that doesn't know what a shoey is, it's when somebody takes a shoe, usually of another person, they pour a beer into it, spit in it, and then you drink it. The spitting is actually the worst part, is I think what Meter's getting at, is the spit. For some reason, the empty shoe with the beer in it isn't as bad as when somebody spits in it like the way that they do. They go,
and they do it communally. Everybody spits in that shit communally. Like old Viking face washing kind of shit.
Look,
here in the show, I can take the spitting.
I feel like you guys are being culturally insensitive right now. I really do. This is some bullshit. I'm trying to be nice about this.
On behalf
I get it. It grosses us out as Americans.
On behalf of the I'm No Joe podcast, I would like to formally apologize to anyone I may have offended with my culturally insensitive comments. That was never my intention, and I look forward to using this as a learning opportunity.
Oh, you can go fuck yourself with that bullshit. You know better. I'm just saying. Look, beyond the shoey, beyond all of that, now that I've started that war here, I honestly think this is Ty's chance to show that he's buckled down a little bit, because his last two fights did not look good at all. He went to decision on his last fight with Ivanov. Ivanov's no fucking slouch.
Right, that was a hell of a fight too.
It was a hell of a fight, but you could tell he was obviously gassed, and that's what ended up costing him. He could have won that fight had he not been gassed. Hopefully, he took that opportunity as a knock on the chin to learn, hey, I need to improve my gas tank. I know I have fucking stupid walk-away knockout power, because we've seen it before where he's put guys in the orbit. And he's not going in there against a fucking slouch either, because, I mean, go back and look at some of Sergey's fucking, just look at his highlight reel. His highlight reel is fucking fantastic. But I honestly think that because of that hometown crowd advantage and coming off those two losses, this is kind of that moment in the career where he has to make that fucking decision. Is this something I'm really wanting to do? Or was I just in this for fun? If it's something he really wants to do, we'll see a completely different Tai Tuivasa as far as gas tank is concerned. Maybe not fighter, because he's already got a fantastic fight IQ. We know he can strike. Right. But we'll see what his gas tank brings, because I think that's going to be the definitive notion of what Tai Tuivasa actually can do. Has he turned that corner to improve his gas tank? If he has, he should have no problem winning this fight.
Well, and that's actually one of the reasons that I'm confident and I'm putting my chips on the Tuivasa corner right now, is because if you followed his social media over the last month and a half or so while he's been preparing for this fight, especially during this last week in particular, he's lighter now than he has ever been as a professional fighter. He's lost weight and he's legitimately doing training to help specifically improve his cardio and slim his body down, because at one point, like a lot of the guys in the heavyweight division, he was cutting to make 265, which means you're a big motherfucker to begin with, and that's coming from a big motherfucker.
That's walking around north of 300 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. And he's at a point now where he looks, and from what they're saying, is going to come in around 250-ish, not cutting weight, just walking around normally because of the way he's changed. So I'm hoping that's right.
I've seen his recent pictures. He looks thinner. He looks leaner. He looks stronger. He looks
devoted. He looks fucking hungry.
And I think that's a scary situation for anyone in the heavyweight division to look at that. That goes all the way up to fucking Ngannou and fucking Stipe up at the top.
Yep.
Anybody who's in that heavyweight division, depending on how he shows, he might be putting everybody on notice in this fight.
Yeah, there's a very good possibility. I agree.
When he first came in with a fucking rolling thunder, but his gas tank wasn't there, and that's what cost him his last two fights.
Yep.
So, I mean, and hopefully the other thing is he's worked on his grappling a little bit, because his grappling has not always been very strong. It's been mediocre at best. Yeah. And in the heavyweight division, you have to have grappling. You fucking have to have it, because a lot of the heavyweight division wearing and grinding on people. So that goes along with the gas tank, but your grappling has to be there too, whether it's the wrestling or the jiu-jitsu, whatever the case may be, but you fucking need it bad in the heavyweight division, because those guys aren't fucking little tiny featherweights where they can just go for days and days. You have to be able to grapple, and to be honest, his grappling, in my opinion, has always been subpar, which was always the downfall to him. Don't get me wrong, I love watching him knock people out, but I really want to see his game actually completely evolve and be a complete, well-rounded game. I mean, we already know his fight IQ is up there because we've seen it in action. but between his gas tank and his grappling, that's where I always had that kind of feeling with him. But knowing his power, fuck, he can touch anybody in the heavyweight division and they'll go to sleep.
Yep.
Any fucking buddy.
And to combine that now, if he's legitimately getting himself in shape like he seems to be doing, and he's putting his gas tank where it needs to be, so he'll have that power reliably at any point throughout the fight, that could make him that much more of a threat to the heavyweight division, in my opinion.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited to see what he weighs in at.
So am I.
Because that's gonna be a tall tale sign of where he's at fight wise.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I'm sitting here thinking about like mentally, like he always seems like he's never afraid of the fight at all, and I'm wondering if the shoeies conditioned him to think that way. If like it's just like you don't give a fuck, and it always seems like when he loses, he's still always in good spirits, and he's like, I just fucking couldn't do it. My body just gave up. And they always say mental's the most part of that fight. It's just something I think about with fights sometimes. It's just like the mental part of it and how some guys just don't give a fuck. Like they just don't. They're not afraid when they get in there. You could see it on Cowboy. He's afraid.
That's what I was just going to say. Yep. Guys like Cowboy are a perfect example of that. Cowboy can get his ass handed to him and still be smiling at the end of the goddamn fight, having a great fucking time walking out, almost as if he didn't just fucking lose. Yep. And Tai Tuivasa is very much the same fucking way, so there could be something to that.
Yeah. And that might be a really good, solid thing for him, too, because of that. If he's got that mental toughness like that, where it's like, yep, shit happens, we got to keep moving on. Dude, more fucking power to you. I just think if he really weighs in at that like 250-ish marker, that's a scary motherfucker. That whole division better go ahead and take their notices off their doors and start training because he's coming.
Oh shit! I agree completely, and it's absolutely one of several reasons why everybody should be tuning in for this weekend. But if you needed another reason to tune in this weekend, this is the point where we slow things down just a little bit, and we've been giving you a lot. And we've been giving you a lot from a couple of pretty hardcore MMA nerds here. So this is the point in the show, I can words, where we slow it down just a little bit and we dial that serious knob back from hardcore to casual, and we give you a little bit more of an everyday person's, a non-hardcore MMA fan's point of view. Everyone's favorite segment, Casual Corner, ladies and gentlemen. The one and only Miss LUMI is here to give us her thoughts on the Australia card. How you doing, LUMI?
Casual? I'm no fucking casual.
Spoken like a casual. Kids these days.
All right.
Weird flex, but okay.
I just wanted to see if I could make you jealous real quick.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. So, these four people of the mainness of all of the greatness. Dan Hooker. Can I just point out, I absolutely love that name. I almost want to get a name change to LUMI Hooker. Just, I saw this name and I was immediately rooting for him. And I was like, I gotta root for Hooker. Because hookers. I love some hookers. Anywho. When I was doing all my research, I wrote shorthand, which means I have no clue what I actually wrote down. Except for how dare he knee Jim Miller in the face. Fucking cunt. You really are a hooker now. I think the fact that he's training with Israel is saying something here. So he had the name going for him. The only thing that was really disappointing here is that made Jim Miller in the face. So it kind of took away some of that love I had for him. Really just kind of ruined the whole thing for me.
I understand. I share that sentiment as well. Jim Miller is probably one of my favorite fighters ever, and that fight hurt me to watch as a fan.
Yeah, but then like when I actually looked at his score, he's only had 11 of his fights go to decision, and I really hate it when fights go to decision. Just something like that just grinds my gears. 37 submissions for Hooker and 53 KO TKO. Seems like my kind of fight to get into, to be honest. But then you look at this Al dude. I can't even read what I wrote for his last name. Iquinta?
Ally Quinta. Yep, you got it pretty good.
Okay. 14-4-1. I was already rooting for Hooker at this point, and then I see this video of this beast just go wild, and I'm just like, this man's a freaking beast. I have no idea where this is going. And he did pretty well against Khabib. That's saying something. So Hooker may be training with Israel, but Al Quinta, dude, has fought Khabib. So for me, this makes me feel like it's really up in the air for who's going to win. I think that this is pretty interesting matchup. And I'm excited. No idea who's gonna win it. I really hope Hooker does something amazing just because I like the name. But yeah. Going to the main card. Israel versus Robert. I almost got a little excited because I took a glance at Robert's name and I thought it was White Walker.
That's funny.
She legitimately asked me when she was doing her research. She's like, "Is his name really Robert White Walker?"
I thought it was Whittaker.
So I got a little excited there, but then I started doing my research for this guy. It's been a year since he fucking fought.
Yeah.
And he has like, it seems like when you look at his cards, his little fucking previous fights, it's almost like a 6 month to a year in between each one. What does he do? Fucking try to get a fight, spend all that money, and then he's like, oh shit, I need a new fight even if I win or lose?
No, he gets hurt a lot. That's why he's got so many gaps. He literally has gotten hurt in almost every fight he's had in the UFC.
Yeah, he's got really bad luck, it seems, because he gets bad injuries, like 4 hernias at a time. He just has like
shattered fucking wrist.
Yeah.
Better start looking for the fucking tumor that's sucking the calcium out of his fucking bones.
Yeah, no shit.
Because that's just a little ridiculous. I wrote down probably an ass. I don't know what
There's definitely a possibility for that.
I think it was because I found out that he was originally a Kiwi and then he moved to Australia. Some Australians are kind of full of themselves and it makes them kind of ass-like, and there's not very many Australians I'm too okay with, to be honest.
What is with this cultural insensitivity shit lately? What are we got going on here?
I am fucking Team Kiwi over here. Every Kiwi I have met has been so down to earth and so relaxed about everything. Just go with the flow. I love my Kiwis. So, too bad he moved from New Zealand to Australia.
Gotta be honest, when I think of Australians, I think tough, crazy. I guess it's too much Crocodile Dundee and Steve, the nature guy with the crocodiles.
Yeah, too bad he got stabbed in the heart by a fucking floating plastic bag thing with a tail. I can't think of the name at the moment. Anywho, he was still a tool anyways. The only nice Australian I really know is Pippa. Going on from there. I'm not really looking forward to this White Walker dude. His new name is White Walker. And then we go to Israel. I can't tell you how many times last night I was saying Israelia. And I was saying we need to have a counter for how many times I mix these names up. But anyway, 17-0 and 0. It's almost like we can have a better Khabib over here. One that we can actually root for with a good score, because fuck Khabib. Fuck Khabib. So I'm looking forward to seeing this guy. He moves like a fucking wizard. Yeah, he's got levitation powers of sneaky slipperiness. Lube me up, baby. That came out wrong. Anyway, I wrote down that he's mellow. Motherfucker's a tall, skinny motherfucker. He looks tiny as shit compared to White Walker, but he's fucking tall. He's gonna use his legs, I feel. So I'm hoping he wins. I wrote down for this world champ kickboxer, wild movement, winning something something. Oh, okay, that's what it says. If not winded. He has been having a few fights. He is on this really good win streak, so as long as he doesn't let that get to him and he has the gas tank to keep going, I feel like it's gonna go in his favor. Where that other guy, he's got a year. Been off for a year. So naturally I think it balances out. Israel has had a lot of fights recently, the other guy's not had any fights, so if Israel is feeling any fatigue, makes up for it, because White Walker has been fighting for a year. I think he's winning. Think Israel's winning, though. Hard truth.
We will definitely have to watch Saturday night to find out.
I'll go back over here with my proper 12. By the way, wait a minute. One more intake of note that I have realized. Masvidal has noticed a troll, per se, on Instagram, and he actually took the time to respond to them. So, Masvidal, where's the fucking shirt? Put it back on the site. I challenge you to a fucking tickle fight, pussy! Peace.
Hashtag super necessary. So, with that under our belts, we will move into the potatoes of the meat and potatoes of this particular episode here. The co-main event, one Raging Al Iaquinta versus Dan the Hangman Hooker. Now, this, aside from everything else, is a very interesting matchup style-wise. Al is a very well-rounded, striking-oriented fighter with a great wrestling background, whereas you've got Hooker on the other side of the octagon, who is a very I would say he was strike-forward, but not strike-based. He's more of a fluid style fighter. He's got a lot more movement, a lot more technicality to him than he does straightforward pressure. Whereas Al is straightforward with the striking, but holy shit, is he going to bring the fucking pressure on top of that. Dan Hooker has got some beautiful highlight reel footage. He is a legitimate bona fide 155 contention fighter. You definitely have to keep your eye on him. But the problem, in my opinion, here is that even though he's just now really coming to fruition, so to speak, with his career as far as recognition goes, they have almost the exact same amount of fights. Iaquinta and Hooker are very similar in the experience department. They've both been there. They've both done that, just not quite to the same level. Dan Hooker has been fairly consistently top of the middle of the pack, but still in the middle of the pack, whereas Iaquinta has been on a virtual steady hill climb since he's gotten here, slowly but surely, but almost all on the upward stroke. No real detrimental losses. Even the loss to Cowboy wasn't a real detrimental loss. He didn't get fucking clobbered and KO'd in round 1 or anything like that. It was a hard fought fucking battle, and it was still a good fight all the way through. Whereas you look at Hooker's side of the card, and yes, some of his victories have been very impressive, but some of his victories have been pretty fucking lackluster. And then when you look at how this fight came to be unto itself, just that story of him knocking out James Vick, who is one of the most acknowledged soup cans in that fucking division and has been knocked out by 2/3 of the fucking roster at this point. And then he said he has to get on the UFC Australia card. He doesn't care who it is. He wants somebody to step up and meet him in Australia. And then backstage for that interview, one of the reporters told him the 3 fighters in your division right now who don't have fights are Ferguson, Gillespie, and Iaquinta. And you watched the wheels turn. Ferguson, he doesn't say a fucking word. Gillespie, he doesn't say a fucking word. Iaquinta, and you see that, oh shit, lesser of 3 evils. And he goes, yeah, that one sounds good. I want to fight Al Iaquinta. That's not a good way to pick a fight. It's a very dangerous way to pick a fight. But at the same time, realistically, that Gregor Gillespie fight probably could have been another highlight reel fight for him. We all know that Tony Ferguson fight wasn't going to get called out. He's not dumb enough to call Tony out at this point because Tony's still a legitimate threat. And from what Dana has said, we'll see if it actually fucking happens or not. Tony gets the next fucking title shot, which has to happen. Him and Khabib have to fucking fight. Title or no title, those two have to fucking fight. They've been paired 4 times at this point and never actually got in the octagon. They have to fight. I get it. But we're in a situation here where you could have taken a challenging fight. You could have taken the better fight for you, but you, for some reason, saw Iaquinta as the more feasible of those 3 options. And like I said, Dan Hooker's got some great highlight reel fights, but I just don't feel he's on the same level as an Al Iaquinta here. Raging Al is Raging Al for a fucking reason, because when that man steps in the octagon, it's not nice. It's not light. He's not the soft-spoken, polite guy that he is outside of the octagon. Al flips that fucking switch, and he's a problem, man. Cowboy didn't have an easy fight on his fucking hands. He won, but it wasn't an easy fucking fight. Then you look at Hooker, and Hooker's no Cowboy by any stretch of the imagination. Dan Hooker does great against mediocre fighters. But when we see him come against real legitimate competition, he tends to struggle a little bit. And I am willing to bet every penny in my wallet that Al Iaquinta is going to bring that pressure. He's not going to come in there and give Hooker a chance to do flashy and showy shit. He's not going to give him a chance to be big and fucking, gutsy and showy. They're both coming off losses here, so they're both hungry. The difference is Al's loss leaves him, in my opinion, still in the top 5, still able to get a good victory and be back in title contention, whereas Dan Hooker's, at least at this point, his only real chance of being mentioned in that conversation for potential next title challengers is for him to do something spectacular and knock Al the fuck out. And as we've seen with some of the best, you just can't do that to Al Iaquinta. That being said, there's always that puncher's chance. There's always that 1 in a million shot that he could do it. I just don't have that confidence based on what I've seen, based off of what I've looked into both of them, the fights that I've seen from both of them, the outside of the octagon, the training, the behind the scenes that I've seen from the 2 of these guys. I have no doubt but to put my money on Rage and Al here. The only thing I can't put my money on is how he's going to end this, because Al's got a very complex toolkit and a great fight IQ. But Hooker's going to pose an interesting challenge for him. I don't see this being an easy fight. So I think Rage and Al's going to take it. I'm not quite sure how, but I have the confidence that Rage and Al's got what it takes for this one.
I'm going to be the first to say this before I even get to break this down. I think this is one of those things where Dan Hooker let his alligator mouth overload his canary ass. He's definitely bitten off way more than he can chew here. Don't get me wrong. Dan Hooker has a lot of fucking potential. And I'm calling it potential because he's obviously not peaked yet. Right now, he is a good, solid, middle-of-the-road fighter. He deserves to be top 15. I don't think he's top 10 material right now. I really don't. So calling out Ally Quinta off of a random list of names that was just thrown out of this is who's available was a very poor decision-making choice in his spot. I'm pretty sure he should have taken the easy highlight for this one, because they still would have given him co-main event under Israel, just because same camp and you train with Israel. But Dan Hooker, he's very good at what he does right now. He's not fantastic yet. If he continues to train with Israel and stays with them right there with the Kiwis, he's going to do fantastically. He's going to continue to get better. But I think this is going to be a big setback for him. I think it's going to be a big eye-opener going, there's some areas I need to work on, and I need to tighten up my game, because Raging Ally, that motherfucker took the Khabib fight on the shortest fucking notice possible. 24 fucking hours. And managed to go the distance. The fucking distance with him. Did not get tapped. He even rocked Khabib a couple times. Raging Al is no fucking joke. He put on one of the gnarliest fights we've seen when he fought fucking Donald Cerrone. Albeit he lost. He didn't get knocked out. He may have gotten worked a little bit in that fight, but not fucking miserably. There's levels in this game, and Dan, I think, took the opportunity to jump to a platform that was just a little too high for him here. I think he's going to fall short. With that being said, on the other side of the house, it's not going to be an easy fight for Al. Dan Hooker's no slouch. We know that. We've seen what he can do. We've seen his highlights, but we've also seen his just mediocre fights. Every time Al gets in there, he's coming. That fucking switch that you were talking about, that turns on, and he is full throttle going after it. I only see this going one way, and it's a W for Raging Al. I Quinta all day. In fact, I have a feeling that this is going to be another one of those notches in his belt where I think he can put Dan Hooker away. I think it'll probably be late second round, middle of the third, but I think he'll finish him. And I think it's going to be the TKO via strikes or ground and pound, because he will mix in that wrestling, and once that wrestling gets in there, that's a wrap, because that dude, he's just a nonstop bull with pressure.
Yeah. I mean, I could take Rage Now just on basic principle of, like, it's like an East Coast thing, but I could, like, I think it makes sense because Al just lost the fight. It just makes sense that he doesn't lose 2 in a row. Dan Hooker just won a couple fights in a row. It makes sense that he loses to a guy that's a little better than him and gets better. It just makes sense to me that Raging Al wins. Can Dan Hooker win? Of course. Anybody could win in UFC. It just, they put on them kind of fights. And I just think it goes down a lot like how Mike Vick and Justin Gaethje went down. I feel like that's how it's kind of going to go down. Dan Hooker's the taller fighter, but Rage Now is just going to put pressure on him, and it's going to end bad for Hooker. And yeah, I would just take Rage Now. I like him all that. I just like him as a fighter. Ooh, I'm not working.
Dum, 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 dum.
I mean, we've told him time and time again, don't just minimize the porn when the show comes on. Actually close it, otherwise it's going to mess the stream up, and look what he does. Kids these days, I tell you. You buy them books, and what do? Chew on the fucking covers.
I don't know.
Hey, there we go.
Where did you hear me say?
Oh, we heard everything. It just sounded like you were in 1984.
That's why TJ was doing the robot. I know TJ likes doing the robot, so I wasn't sure why he was doing the robot.
I mean, you didn't see him tick the hand, so you knew it wasn't a full dance.
Okay. Well, basically what I said was L.I. Quinta's going to win.
I thought that's what it was, but I wasn't sure if he was speaking binary or not.
Yeah, no, I was talking like that. It was all planned. I got it written down right here.
So now I have a thought here. I hate to put the bad juju on it just because there's a big fucking fight coming up. But realistically, if it happens and Al loses to Dan Hooker, does that make him the top 3 gatekeeper now? Because that would be the third top of that stack that he has fought and lost almost in a row, with the exception of that Kevin Lee ass whooping that he handed out. That's 3 top guys in a row, 3 top guys that beat him, but he's still beating everyone else.
Oh, I did not even think like that.
I guess it depends how good of a fight it is.
Right.
It really depends how good of a. If he gets straight demolished, then yeah. But if it's a good fight, like that's what's good about the UFC and fighting is like even if you put on a good fight, it doesn't seem like you fall too far, and like that's kind of what's good about it. It's like even Cowboy, like he's not really like I think we talked about this last year how he was kind of like a gatekeeper of the, and now he's like at the top again. And he just lost, but he could have another good fight. And it's kind of
even that loss didn't knock him down that far, if at all.
Yeah. Like Anthony Pettis, like he's probably going to get another awesome fight.
Yep. Well, and then that brings me to my other point about this here. Winner of this fight versus Gaethje. Since we know that Tony's next in line for the title, the winner of this is obviously not getting the next shot, but now that Gaethje just beat Cowboy,
I would love to see Gaethje versus Ally Quinta. I think that would be an amazing fight.
Or on the other side of that, if Al gets beat by Hooker in a real dominant fashion like that, that would make for an interesting match of Hooker versus Gaethje as well.
Yeah.
That would. That makes sense for a next fight for either one of them. My question to that is do they get I'm using this very, very loosely. Do they get screwed into having to fight Cowboy? Because Cowboy just lost to Tony, or to Gaethje, excuse me.
I don't know that they can really, because Cowboy just beat Al.
Yeah,
I think it almost forces the Gaethje situation on the winner here, because Cowboy just beat Al and went, the full fucking round.
This is very true. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out either way. But I definitely neither one of them are going to end up getting the title shot next. As much as there was a moment in history where I thought Al deserved another shot at that right away, purely on the fact of going 5 rounds on 24-hour notice. But
right,
that is what it is. I mean, that shit's all in the past. Can't live in the past. This is the present.
Right.
And we need to open that shit up so we can see what kind of gift we're about to get.
Yeah, ain't that the damn truth? Well, and speaking of the gift that we're about to get, that brings us to the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes that is the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes segment of this fucking show. the main event of the evening. It's been so long since I've been able to be excited about one. God damn it. Here we are. 243 headliner, Israel, the Last Stylebender Adesanya versus Robert the Reaper Whittaker, aka Bobby Knuckles. This is going to be a spectacular fucking match in the 185-pound division, which is, to its credit, heating the fuck up once again. For a hot minute there, 155 was the only real division, with a small exception for some 145s, but for the most part, 155 has been the hot division in the UFC for a good minute now, and we're getting to the point where we're finally starting to get some new heavyweight blood. We're finally starting to get some new light heavyweight blood, but we're getting an influx almost of 185 pounders coming in. We've got a bunch of both new guys in 185 and guys that might be moving to 185 that are making things real interesting, as well as the whole top of the fucking stack at 185 is just ridiculous right now. And the tippity top of that ridiculous stack is the champion and the interim champion, both Whittaker and Adesanya. Matchup stylistically is a little bit interesting here. Record-wise, it's not what you think. It's 21-4 versus 17-0. They're not terribly that far off, aside from Adesanya being on an undefeated run still. Matchup-wise, caliber speaking, they've both run the gamut with a series of big-name fights in their rear view, and a couple of them they have both fought to different times. The main two that I'm talking about being Brad Tavares and Derek Brunson. Now, Robert Whittaker, KO TKO against Tavares in round 1. You flip over, you look at Israel Adesanya. When Israel Adesanya fought Brad Tavares, he took him to a full 5-round decision. That being said, he picked Tavares the fuck apart for that fight. Some of that fight is still being used in the current promo by the UFC for this fight. There was so much clean technical fighting in that match. And then you look back over. You look at Robert Whittaker when he fought Derek Brunson. 4 minutes, 9 seconds in the first round. You flip back over. You look at Adesanya, 4 minutes, 28 seconds in the first round, but a very, very different fight in both situations here. Whittaker took the straight Bobby Knuckles forward pressure punching power and just got his number. Had Brunson in trouble right out of the fucking gate and just shut him down. And then you look at the Adesanya match against Derek Brunson. And this was one of the first times we got to see what Joe Rogan likes to refer to as fighting from the Matrix. When Israel Adesanya is in the zone, he is in another dimension while he's fighting you. It doesn't matter if you see him in front of you, he's not there. Swing, you'll see exactly what I mean because he's not there. Kick, he's not there. Shoot, he steps off. His movement is so fluid. His defensive ability is so fucking high that it makes his counter striking that much more dangerous than it already is. He uses orthodox. He uses unorthodox. He uses traditional stance. He switches and he fights southpaw, and he does it all fluidly. He rotates from one stance to the other, striking style to another. He puts a sideways stance. He puts a boxing stance. He puts a karate point fighter stance on you, and he moves so fluidly from all of them that it makes it hard to read, hard to tell where his strikes are coming from. And because he's so fluid and he uses so many different styles, he almost always keeps his hands Bruce Lee style closer to his waist, and it makes the jabs and the hard 1-2s that he throws that much harder to see because you're watching his shoulders and they're coming from the waist. So they're harder to see, they're harder to read, and they work so fucking beautifully. The other thing, Adesanya himself says it. I don't hope and pray. I aim and fire. He is a strategic sniper with his shots. He's not one that you'll see throwing a lot of wasted motion. He'll throw some feints, but when his hands leave or when his legs move, it's placed and it's intentioned, and he knows exactly where, when, and how he wants to do it. And you look across the octagon, it's not that Robert Whittaker is a slouch by any stretch of the imagination. He does not have the 185 belt because he's a maybe or he's a nobody or he's a lucky guy. He's got the belt. He's defended the belt. Arguably, he lost the belt to Yoel Romero in the second fight. But he has the belt. He is the champion for a reason. He is one of the toughest 185-pounders you will see in the UFC's history. He fought with broken leg. He's fought with broken wrist. He's fought with multiple serious injuries and kept fighting. He only wasn't in the last UFC card because he had multitude internal hernias where his abdomen was physically pushing itself out of his fucking body. He was still willing to keep training. They had to force him to go to the hospital where he had to undergo immediate emergency surgery. So we know for a fact that you don't just stop Whittaker. He doesn't just not fight anymore because he's hurt or because his hand's in trouble. Pettis. Robert Whittaker will stand in the fire until he is completely fucking consumed. You have to stop him to beat him, because if you take him to a decision, as we've seen on multiple occasions, he does enough work. He keeps enough pressure. He's got a constant enough barrage. He'll take almost anybody on points. But Israel Adesanya is not just anybody, and he's not here to point fight. He's not here to go 5 rounds like he did with Kelvin. Whittaker's style, to me, is so reminiscent of Kelvin's style, but with more kicks. And we saw Adesanya can adapt and overcome to Kelvin's style. Stylistically, Whittaker is very similar to that. So I have to think there is every inclination that Israel can come through, figure it out pretty quick, and put the work in. The thing that multiple outlets have incorrectly reported, and Izzy was kind enough to correct, is that aside from being 17-0 as a professional mixed martial artist, perfect in his 6-0 record in the UFC, he also is a 75-5 world champion kickboxer. Adesanya might be young, but he has experience in spades all over the place. He's fought in arenas this big. He's fought in matches this important before. It might not have been in the UFC, but he's seen everything that he's about to see in different pieces before. It's just a matter of it all culminating to the event that we're watching this weekend. In my opinion, Whittaker is a badass. He's not Bobby Knuckles for no reason. He doesn't have that piece of gold strapped around his waist by coincidence. He's a badass. But Adesanya, I feel, is a smarter striker. He's a smoother striker, and he's a more intelligent striker in the way that he chooses to engage in these fights. Aside from all that, like we've said before, Robert Whittaker has had 3 fights in his last 4 years. We haven't seen him since the last fight, which was almost 2 years ago. In the last 14 months alone, Israel Adesanya has gone 6-0 through a veritable who's who in the 185-pound division. While Robert was healing from an injury, Adesanya leapfrogged and beat his way up the entire pack. I think Adesanya is too elusive and too pinpoint accurate for Whittaker to be able to do what he thinks he's going to do. Whittaker thinks and has said he wants to knock Adesanya out. He does not want this to be a 5-round fight. He thinks he's going to knock him out, says he's going to do it in the first. I like Bobby Knuckles, but A, I don't think he's knocking Adesanya out. B, I don't think he's going to do it in the first, even if he does have a chance to knock Adesanya out. I feel that Adesanya is too good at this point. There's too much in his favor. He's too good defensively. He's too accurate. He's too unorthodox in his style, especially against a style like Whittaker's. I cannot see this fight going any way but Adesanya leaving Australia with the belt wrapped around his waist. I think it goes down in the third. I think Izzy is going to set him up. There's going to be a kick. There's going to be a combo. There's going to be a man on the ground, and it's going to be Robert Whittaker as Adesanya takes his place and new.
This one for me, this is actually this is going to be a firefight to me. I really do think this is going to end up being a firefight on fight. But I think what's the fight is really going to come down to, because look, we all know Israel is a whole different animal than anyone in the UFC. As much as everybody likes to compare him to Anderson Silva in his prime, he's different than Anderson Silva. Not by much, but there's definitely a difference there. But he does have that same swagger about the way he fights that Anderson Silva did, which made their fight so fucking interesting. And it was fun to watch, even though Anderson Silva was no longer in his prime when they fought, but it was still an interesting and fun fight to watch. But there's one thing I have to fucking wonder here. Robert Whittaker just had hernia surgery. That's a look. The abdominal hernia that he had, that's a very life-threatening injury. Look, being formally medically trained, that shit can fucking kill you. If that would have ruptured, he would have fucking died. Period. They're lucky he caught it before the fight was actually supposed to happen. Which, don't get me wrong, gave for a fantastic fight between Israel Adesanya and fucking Kelvin Gastelum. Which, I'm not gonna lie, I think Israel needed that fight. I think he really fucking needed that fight to test him. Because that was a fucking test. As much as I'm not a fan of Kelvin Gastelum and the way that man carries himself, he tested Israel more than anybody has tested him so far in the UFC. I think that was that wake-up call of, hey, I really need to buckle down here. Because, yeah, I was 16-0 when I fought him, and I was walking through people. And you get a guy like Kelvin Gastelum who, in my opinion, I don't think he's top 5, top 10. I really think he's like a top 15 fighter. And that dude put a working on you. Yes, you won, but you got worked too. It was definitely not an easy fight. And hopefully that was enough to get him to buckle down and go, yep, I really need to focus on this, because Robert Whittaker is not. He's going to fight harder than Kelvin Gastelum will have ever fought. And that's what makes the fight interesting, and me thinking that it's going to be a firefight, because we know Robert Whittaker is going to just go in there and throw. That's what he does. I think what's really going to happen here is I'm having a hard time calling the fight, because I really do foresee that Robert Whittaker can knock Israel Adesanya out. However, the catch to that is he actually has to be able to catch him. With the movement that Israel does, the way he fucking just basically slides in and out and sideways and backwards and all kinds of different ways, his fucking footwork is fucking crazy. That's going to be the hard part for Whittaker. And how is he doing post-surgery and recovery from hernia surgery? That shit takes a lot out of you. I don't give a fuck who you are. That's a major surgery. How does he come back from that? Because, let's see, he was out, that was what, a year ago was his last fight. It was like June of last year or something like that.
16 months.
Yeah, so it was a good fucking ways ago. And to know you were out that long after having a major surgery, how do you come back? Because he was a pretty goddamn active fighter up until that point, even with injuries. He would keep fighting. He didn't care. But that one had to sideline him, because it was that or dead. Your choice. Do you fight and die, or do you get saved? But 16 months, even holding the belt, That's a long fucking time. I know he's on like a fucking 9-fight win streak or something, so it's nothing to be joked at. He's had a lot of fucking hard mileage put on during that because he's had some wars. But I really think for me this is a toss-up fight, and it's only on this reason. It's can Robert Whittaker catch Israel flat-footed? I don't think so. But if Israel is not moving like he normally does, that's going to be the end of Israel's fucking 17-0 run streak when it comes to MMA. However, on the other side of that coin, there's not been a fight that we've seen out of Israel where he doesn't have fantastic footwork. He's not moving in and striking where he wants when he wants. I really think this is all going to come down to, can Robert Whittaker actually catch him while he's moving? If he can't, Israel Adesanya is going to come out and new, unify the belt. And on the other side of that, Whittaker, if he catches him, that could be it, because Whittaker does have fucking one-punch KO power. We've seen it. So, to play devil's advocate here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, because I really think Israel's going to win this fight, but if I'm going to bet on this fight, I'm going to bet Robert Whittaker to win. Via KO, but not first round. Probably like second or third. Anything past that, I think he'll be a little too gassed to be able to catch him with enough power. But to be quite honest, I think Israel comes out in new, but Robert Whittaker, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting on Robert. Purely on the fucking, just the KO potential that's there.
Interesting.
Okay, yeah. So the last time I looked at the Vegas odds, they were even -110, -110, which is extremely interesting. That's kind of how I see it too. It's like, man, the injuries to Robert Whittaker really worry me for him. I really think. Actually,
I am a robot. You cannot see me.
I mean, we've told him time and time again, porn streams 24/7, man. You don't have to leave it open during the show. It'll be there when you get back.
That's right. You wonder why he's got all them tissues. It sure as fuck ain't for taking pictures.
Oh. I see.
There's no way they're going to get me on the last fight. Fuck that. I'm here this whole time. You're going to try to get me on the last fight? I don't know what's going on. I only have the chat up and the whatchamacallit up. Well, anyway. Okay. So, Vegas odds, -110, -110. That's kind of how I see it, too. It obviously could go either way. Robert Whittaker's got the power. Israel's got the speed, I think. I guess we'll find out. I'm pretty sure he does. The footwork and everything. Israel seems like the newer, better fighter, but Robert Whittaker, I think, does get forgotten about because he doesn't fight that much. I think his injuries absolutely take a toll in this fight. If he gets caught with one hand like he did with Yoel, that's going to be a fucking problem. It's going to be a problem. If he has anything to do with – everybody's got injuries going into fights. But when you look at his injuries, it's a little fucking scary. I used to think that Robert Whittaker, he could be the champion, but he didn't necessarily deserve to be the champion the way that the path went. I since have went back and looked at the Yoel Romero fights, and I do think that he won them fights. I used to think that it was very close, and the judges still could have gave it to Yoel Romero, and it could be possible that Robert Whittaker is not the champion right now. Now, I highly disagree with the Gaslam thing. I think Kelvin Gaslam is very, very good. I think he's better than Robert Whittaker, and I think he would have beat Robert Whittaker. I really do. And I think that Israel already fought the better guy. I think that they both have been to wars. They've both seen what they were made of. And I thought that night that Kelvin Gastelum was fighting Whittaker, that Gastelum was going to take the title. I really thought that. And I think Whittaker's awesome, but I think this is like the perfect title fight because you got a champion that he does deserve to be champion. He's an awesome fighter. I love Robert Whittaker. I love both these fighters. I think it's the perfect title fight because it could go either way. And Israel has done something that not a lot of people do, and he has slowly climbed that ladder. That's kind of what we were talking about Dan Hooker, where he's kind of jumping into the water a little too quickly. But Israel has like climbed up that ladder and fought like every level of fighter, and now he's to the top. And that's kind of what makes it perfect, because even if he loses, it's like he's only got like one more guy to fight to get back in there. And if he loses, then Robert Whittaker fights Gastelum, and I think Gastelum wins, and then he fights Gastelum, which he already beat. So I just think that it's a perfect circumstance. And I used to think Israel was crazy for calling out John Jones. I used to think that was the craziest thing. And then I started looking up the stats, and I was like, wow, they're the same height. Okay, John's a little bigger. Israel's a little younger. Israel seems a little quicker and more serious about the sport. It's actually like, I still think it's a little crazy. I don't know if the UFC would put it on, but that's kind of how Conor McGregor became so big, is them crazy fights, fighting Nate Diaz, fighting Eddie Alvarez, fighting like guys that were bigger that everybody thought were better. And if you want to get a star to just blow up out of nowhere, that's how you do it. If he wins this title, that's how you're going to do it. You're going to have to take that gamble and see if he can do it. Let's say he fights John Jones and loses. Would that be a horrible thing? Not really. Everybody loses to John Jones. I think it's Israel's time. I could absolutely see Whittaker winning this because he's just, dude, Australians are fucking tough. I don't know. They're just fucking tough. I've talked to a lot of them personally, and some of the shit that they say they do day to day is just like, Jesus. They walk past fucking jacked ass kangaroos every day. What the fuck? Them fuckers look like they're on steroids. So, yeah, it's gonna be a good fight. I think it's a perfect title fight. Like there is no question whether Israel should be there. He definitely should be there, and there's no question that Robert should be there fighting Israel. It's just a perfect title fight. I think it could be fight of the year. I don't know. I just think neither of them are going to get knocked out. I think it's going to go to decision just because of their track record. So that's how I see it. I would pick Israel, though, just because it's just on the fact that I want to win. But I like both of them. They're both great fighters. I could see either of them winning. But then that goes to, who do you root for? Israel. So
I agree. I think it's a very interesting situation in 185 right now between Israel and Kelvin and Robert, and then you still got you can't deny that Yoel is still there. He might not be the next guy for the title shot, but based on what he did to Whittaker, and if he would have made weight the last time that he fought Whittaker, we realistically might have a different situation on our hands right now than we're looking at, because if you go back and watch that fight, it's the free fight on the UFC right now. So you can watch that whole fight on YouTube all over again. And you can see early on in the fight, Rogan mentions that Whittaker just stops throwing his right hand altogether. And then you see as the fight progresses, not only did he stop throwing that right, he switched his entire style up for that fight and went full left heavy and throwing his kicks more predominantly than he generally does, but was throwing everything left and wasn't even really feinting with the right. So it's a real similar situation to the first time where you saw he hurt his leg, and immediately you could tell that it was hurt. Granted, tough motherfucker, both situations, fought through it. But, like you said, he's got a serious track record of getting major fucking injuries, and in a fight against Yoel where you kind of knew he was going to bring a real similar style that Whittaker was going to, and it was going to be a real striker's brawl with, the danger of a takedown here and there. That's not the fight that we're going to see against Adesanya here. If you hurt yourself early in that fucking fight against Adesanya, he'll spot it immediately, and he's going to go. He's a fucking shark, and when blood hits the water, he's going to circle and go for the kill, and he's going to do it intelligently. He's not going to give you the chances that Yoel did to finish the goddamn fight one-handed. That's not the kind of fight that Izzy puts on. That's not his style. So it absolutely, I agree as well that if Whittaker can touch him and touch him clean, Whittaker's got the power that he could potentially put Izzy on his ass. Can he put him out? I don't know. Izzy took some fucking bombs from Gastelum and wobbled, but never shook, never went, in trouble down. Whittaker can absolutely put hands on Adesanya, but I think it's more likely that Whittaker realistically could get hurt during the course of the fight if it goes on, and Adesanya is not the type to let you limp around. He's not going to play that John Jones bullshit when Thiago's leg was hurt and he wanted to have a striker's battle to show him who's good at what. I think this is a situation where Adesanya's coming in there gassed to 11 when Whittaker is at 10, and if at any point in time Whittaker gets hurt, like we've seen him do in several of his most recent fights, this could be the end. We see a Bobby Knuckles for a good hot minute here, because Adesanya's not going to take it light on him, man. This is a serious deal, and he could be in real trouble, because I agree 100%. If Gastelum and Whittaker fight, I think Gastelum takes that matchup all day, every fucking day. And especially if we look at a situation where Adesanya just went 5 rounds of fucking war with Gastelum and won, absolutely fucking won. And if we see Adesanya take out Whittaker here, and then Gastelum gets his shot at Whittaker like originally was scheduled, I think that's going to be another bump that Whittaker gets knocked down the fucking ladder. I think absolutely that Gastelum takes Whittaker as well. So I think if Adesanya takes it this weekend, like I think he's going to, I think this could start the bump down of Whittaker back down the ladder and start rotating some of that new blood up the line. Mm-hmm. And then that Jones fight is in the fucking wings potentially. I don't know where they would do it weight-wise, but there's clearly interest from both parties there.
You know what? I only have one weird thing about that. Unless if this is a close fight and Israel wins it, I think that they automatically give Robert another a rematch, because he has defended the belt on multiple occasions at this point. So he's well deserving of that, as long as he doesn't get put away decisively.
Didn't he only defend once? I think he only defended it once.
I think he's defended twice, if I'm not mistaken.
He won it with Yoel.
He won it from Yoel in the first one, and then defended it against Yoel in the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird situation with him. That's like why I'm always like, he may not even deserve the belt, because he won it in a weird way against Yoel, and then the second fight he might not even won. Like, because that's like people's argument, and I always hated that argument. Like, he won with one hand. Well, Yoel had 2 hands because he broke his hand during a fight. That goes to the other guy for you broke your hand in a fight. That means that you did something not good. Or the other guy's just better in a way because he didn't break his. So that argument, I always hated that. He won with one hand. Well, he broke his hand during the fight. What the fuck?
Well, and on the same note, the second time when his first actual title defense wasn't even really a title defense because Romero missed weight. So even if he won, he wasn't eligible to take the title from him. So it was essentially, even though it didn't quite work out that way, it was essentially a free fight for Whittaker and the ability to retain the title regardless of the outcome. So I agree. It's been a weird situation.
The division kind of sucked at the time. Michael Bisping was the champ, and then GSP gave it up. So he was the best at the time. So it's kind of he deserves to be champ, but he never really earned it and kept it in my perspective. But to be honest, he's probably the champ. Whatever he is. And people forget about him. That's the problem. Is he's got so many injuries, people forget about him. It's just he needs to remind people. Really, that's the gist of it.
Well, and I think to that point, this weekend is not for lack of trying, but I think realistically, this weekend may be his last chance because with all the fucking time off he's had between his last couple of fights while he's been the champion, I think it makes him look very accident prone and inactive as a champion. And if we get another, knockdown, drag out war here, say he wins, but they go 5 rounds and he gets hurt again, and then we don't see Whittaker back in the octagon again for another 9 months a year, at that point, what are we really going to do? Are we going to set up another interim title again? Because Whittaker is a champion, but he can't be an active champion because he's so fucking injury prone. Like, I think realistically, if he gets beat this weekend and he gets beat dominantly by Izzy, I think it's going to start a slow downhill slide for Robert. I think all that fucking investment that he's put in has just been too little too late at this point if he loses.
It's like a Dominic Cruz or Cain Velasquez kind of thing.
Carlos Condit.
Yep. Yeah.
Same thing, yeah. Injuries will take the best fucking fighter in the game, and if you're on the sidelines too fucking long from those injuries, you lose all the fucking momentum you put in. And yeah, Dominic Cruz is a perfect fucking example of that because he was one of the most fucking dominant 135ers ever, but had a series of just absolutely unfucking conscionable injuries that were of no fault of his own, but they were serious enough to where they kept him out of the game altogether for long enough to where it passed him by the time he got back. And I feel like Whittaker is on that cusp, clinging to the fucking tailgate of the truck. And at this point, he's either got to jump in and get his shit together or let go, and the fucking game's going to move on.
Yeah, and genetics are a big part of this game. Genetics are huge, yeah.
No, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for sure. But that is our card, ladies and gentlemen. That is what we have for you this evening. So before we get all the fucking way out of here, I do want to take a moment and thank both of these gentlemen for taking time out of their lives to be here with me, to talk some shit, to break down this card, to bring you guys some opinions on what we think this weekend could potentially end up as. So if by some chance the folks have not had enough and they need to talk to the Phantom of Fishtown about MMA, how can they get a hold of you, Nick?
Hey, it's extremely honoring that you know what neighborhood I'm from. That's awesome. Yeah, you could see me on n.divine83, Instagram and YouTube. Thank you for having me. I had fun. I'm not going to jinx next week. I hope I'm here. It was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you again for taking time out of your life to be here. I do appreciate that. Now, for some reason, if somebody thinks that Green Bay is just football town and they don't know MMA, how are they going to be able to get a hold of you to get themselves corrected, TJ?
They can get themselves corrected on Wednesday nights right here, Golf T Vapes. On the YouTube's 9:30 Central Time. That's 10:30 if you're out east, and if you're out west, that's 7:30. Also, the Instagrizzles, you can find me there. You should DM me. I will gladly put you in your place. Unless you have a legitimate point, then I might agree with you, but it better be fucking legitimate. It was a blast. Can't wait to do this again.
And thank you as well for the time out of your life here. I do appreciate both of you guys taking the time to be here. But that is all we've got for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all coming along for the ride. Remember, if we made you chuckle, if we gave you some opinions you didn't have before this show, give us a thumbs up, maybe subscribe. We'd appreciate it. If we just gave you the best fucking show you've ever seen, if we brought things out that you never would have thought of on your own, share the show with a friend. We're trying to grow this damn thing. On the other side of that coin, if you think we're just a couple of dipshits sitting in front of cameras talking about something we don't know anything about, give us a thumbs down.
Ribbons in ears.
We earned it. Ribbons in your hair. But that's all we've got for this evening. So if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy. Wait, that's not right. Don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything. That's how it goes. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. But they fought with expert timing. There were funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown. They were chopping them up, they were chopping them down. It's an ancient Chinese art, and everybody knew their part. From a fainting to a slip, and a kicking from the hip. Everybody was kung fu fighting.